Well, hello, everybody. Uh, Welcome back. Second half of the Monica Sementilli trial, day 33. We still have the ex-fiance, co-red rumor, unalive on the stand. And now we are on redirect. I'm sure there's going to be a recross. But who knows? They may rest with this witness as far as his testimony and get on to a new defendant. I mean, a new witness for the defense. For those of you who are just hopping on, thank you so much for being here. I am feeling a little under the weather and that way for a couple of days. I do apologize. I'm doing the best I can, but we are here. Yep. Wrong one. Not what I wanted to do, y'all. I want to share this screen. There we go. I apologize for that. I'm really struggling with my breathing right now, but is what it is. So this morning we got interesting news. We got news that the wonderful Trooper Proctor, our dear friend, Trooper Michael Proctor, who's such an upstanding citizen and a unblemished police officer, trooper for more than 12 years, was dishonorably discharged today for his comments and behavior in the Karen Reed case, but also in July, I think it was July of that same year, he was having dinner, was drinking, and got in his patrol car and drank. Was drinking and driving while in patrol car. And so that was just one count out of, well, there was two counts. One had 3 sub-counts, and then count 2 had the 1. And so wonderful Trooper Proctor is no longer a trooper and is no longer a part of the department, no longer under their protection, no longer an upstanding citizen of that county, and should have his head down in shame. Although the family of Proctor came back and gave a statement as to how wonderful he is and what an injustice this is. So go figure. God only knows what they're doing. I wouldn't be putting anything out there if that was my husband. Now, I'm not saying she should leave him or anything, but sometimes things are done. Oh my gosh. Sorry, y'all. Sometimes things can be done just a little bit too soon, and she's done it a little bit too soon. I feel that they needed to let this lay for a little bit before they start hopping on that boat about his innocence. I think sometimes, like I said, things can be said a little too quickly, but it is what it is. We are now waiting for the Sementilli trial to return for lunch. Next week, we will have court will be dark Monday through Thursday. They will return to court on Friday. Sorry. Trying to take some of that hot pink out of that. The jury was wanting to work through a break because they know that they're going to be dark all week next week, except for Friday. And I can appreciate that, y'all. I really can. So they've been at it for 5 weeks. 5 or 6 weeks. We're at 33 days. Some weeks were not a full week due to holidays. So, I feel bad for the jury, honestly. And one thing that they sat through, which I really feel bad for them for, was literally almost 4 days. The number 4 seems to be popping in this case, but, um, almost 4 days of listening to inmate cell calls between Monica Sementilli and the co-defendant. I'm not doing well with this today. Co-defendant Baker, who's still on the stand. Unfortunately for us, Baker has been very, I don't remember, I don't recall, I don't know if I wrote that. Ooh, can't do that. Hold on. My hearing aids are just not happy. They He has been very vague and not very forthcoming like he's supposed to be. So it's an interesting trial to say the least. So we are waiting for them to come back. They were supposed to be back at 3:30. Thank you guys for your understanding about me breaking for lunch and letting me lay down for a hot minute. Don't you hate it when you don't feel well and you lay down and you only got an hour's nap and you fall asleep 10 minutes before you're supposed to get up? Okay, just want to let you know the U.S. investigators say the Alaskan plane crash was overweight for icy conditions that crashed and killed 10 people in Juneau, Alaska. The commuter plane that crashed on the sea's ice of Alaska killed almost 10 people on board, was half a ton overweight for the weather conditions, the National Transportation Service Board said in preliminary reports this Wednesday. Reports said the plane was too heavy for the conditions that caused the icing at the speed and altitude it was flying. So it was from February 6th when that crash happened. The third, that it, let me see. The crash was one of Alaska's deadliest plane crashes in this century and the third major U.S. aviation mishap in 8-day time span. So, that is definitely the, definitely the, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't wanna do that. Check out. No, thank you. So, long story short, yep. So, it's really bad. I feel bad, but it is up to, don't you come on, dude. Give me my check. I got a bid advertisement I can't get rid of. So, anyway, it's one of those things that you just absolutely, I feel so, um, heartbroken for the families and pray that this will bring some closure. So, yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible. So that's, that's, you got to trust who is going to be flying you around, is going to do the right thing. And they did not. So my heart goes out to them. It really, really does. I'm heartbroken for them. I know I'm a little soft. I'm talking as about as loud as I can. Hopefully it's loud enough for you guys. I don't know which direction this one. I can't do it now. It won't work. My microphone's thinks it's not staying tight, see? But I got this cranked so tight, I can't loosen it. So it doesn't want to stay. So frustrating. Ultimately, so frustrating. Let me see if I can use this and get it. Maybe I'm going in the wrong direction. Okay, nope. Did that tighten it? It's just, you got to tighten it beyond what I can tighten it physically. And I shouldn't have to fight with this that much. But it is what it is. Oh, y'all. That was Sunny Day. Welcome. Sunny Day. That was back earlier this year, but they finally discovered what made it. So it is what it is. It felt good to lay down for a few minutes, but yeah, I've set my alarm, luckily. But I woke up 2 minutes before it went off. Go figure. But hi, Elaine. Welcome back. We're waiting for court to begin. I am feeling like I'm screaming. Be Blazy. Let me go into my email. If you have won anything from me, it is your responsibility to get a hold of me and claim your gift. I have some people go, well, you didn't send it to me. Well, you won a tumbler. Congratulations. But I told you I need your name, phone number, and all of that, and you don't send it. So let me reply. Phone and so Be Blazy won the gift card. And I do give you a choice. I say Starbucks because everybody a lot of people like Starbucks. But it could be to any company you wish. Some people are out of country, so I will go online and get an online card and email it to you. Be Blazy, hello. Well, it is three colors mixed together. I know, I know, I know. Yep, I know. Three colors mixed together. What are they? I have number 404 and the Limelight by Alcone. That's a company I use for my cosmetics. Love Lip Gloss by Limelight. And then this is Glitter Glaze. It's actually a shadow, but I also use it over gloss or lipstick. Thank you very much. I did send you, I know, perfectly lippy. I did send you a response, Be Blazy. So go back to your email. Oh, sorry, guys. Just struggling to breathe a little bit. We're good. I'm not panicked. I'm just, it hurts to even cough. Have you gotten to that point to where you're afraid to cough because it hurts your ribs so bad? Kind of where I'm at right now. But that be life. We all good. We all good. We all good. We all good. God is good all the time. All the time. God is good. I keep telling myself that. I am excited that, well, I don't know. I don't know if I'm excited or worried, but, um, oh, thank you, honey. What was I gonna say? I don't know if it's an infection yet. I have an appointment at an urgent care because quicker than getting into my doctor after I get off work today and, go get checked out. Um, the one thing is I, um I don't feel it as an infection yet. Okay, I'll get you an Amazon. I don't feel like it's an infection yet, but I feel it could go there. So I'd rather go ahead and just be careful. I got a conference this weekend. Now, I do know, well, how many of you know what, no problem. How many of you have heard of Sweet Adelines International? What, puppers? Come here. Hi, baby. I used to sing barbershop music and compete, and I always got, and our competitions were always during the time that it would be the worst allergy season, the worst time. And I have learned that there's a cocktail between antihistamines and antibiotic, just in case, and steroids that would um kind of keep me singing, but it was shots. It was not a low dose, it was a high dose, and it was shots. So, oh, I wanted to share with y'all. Remember yesterday we watched the splashdown of freedom? Um, they were unexpectedly welcomed by a pod of dolphins. It was a sight to see. It was awesome. And the incredible video that we saw yesterday with the dolphins swimming around the pod was awesome. Oh, hi, Sensei. Hey, hon. So I have learned, back to the medical, that if I need to, I'll go and get me a steroid injection. But the only thing is, it keeps me awake for a very long time. I don't sleep on steroids. Nope, I do not. I don't sleep on steroids. So yeah, but I think I'll be okay. I'm better in the afternoons definitely than early mornings, but the unfortunate thing, I'm gonna have to be up at 6 in the morning on Saturday for the conference. I know, I'll do antibiotics. I got that too. We still have that remember that fire that went over 10,000 acres close by me? It is still burning, y'all. So, just FYI, it is still burning. So, I know some people have asked me. Yes, we are still tending fires nearby. So, it is what it is. Haley Mouse, you go and enjoy your dinner. You've earned it, babe. You worked hard. You worked hard today. Excuse me. I hate that we're hearing me see. I've got me a little bit of pizza, mm, and chicken wings. Oh, I'm gonna share this while we're waiting. I have fought these fires. N Look at that. You know, it's kind of scary, but kinda cool driving through fire. I have been the person on the back of the truck trying to put out those fires, and that's not moving fast. That's moving at a moderate rate, not too fast. But y'all, that stuff gets scary. I'll have to try and find I don't have very many pictures of me as a firefighter. We're busy fighting to take pictures. Um, let's how many of you think we're gonna get to the end of this witness today? I have a little bit of hope, but not a lot. I have a little bit of hope. I'm sorry, y'all, I'm hungry. I slept through my lunch or our lunchtime. Hello, Miss June. Oh, it's hard to keep talking and breathing. Can't wait to see my babe this weekend. He was supposed to come up today. We live about 2 hours apart, but I told him I was sick and didn't wanna get him sick. Mm, so we'll see each other this weekend at a conference. Yay. Yay. So, um, I'm sorry. I'm focusing on breathing. So, does anybody have Easter coming up? We all know Easter's coming up. Do y'all have some favorite family traditions besides just going to church? I remember when the movie The Passion came out, and I hadn't seen it, and they played it again at the time of Easter. Oh my Lord, y'all. Mm-mm. Uh-uh. Great movie, but boy, gory. I am also. I don't know. You may not want to ever come back after you see me at this conference. I'll be driving a golf cart around, helping some women get from their cottages and hotel rooms to the conference center. All right. Why is it that they say be back at a certain time? I know there's a delay, but it looks like it's a little too big of a delay. I'm looking for potential videos that I can show y'all during this delay. Oh, I do want to show you this. Rare images of Michael Jackson. And these are not made up, they say. That poor man went through hell. He was such a great performer. I think that was the autopsy, or as he had passed. What a shame. Now I know why he was so self conscious. Now I know why. You know, he said he had that condition, but I had no idea it was that bad. What do y'all think? That is on YouTube. Oh, look at this. Karen Reed's defense team. Cook a meal.
I am incompetent. Good. Good. That is so good. Good. What do you have for meat in there? A pound of beef and a half a pound of pork. I would have guessed lamb. No, I didn't do very good. Didn't do lamb. Yeah, very, very good. Yeah, it's good. Yeah. It's good, right? My favorite chefs. Will you taste this? I will. I would definitely give it a shot. All right. Absolutely. I'm breaking all protocols. Listen, I ate pizza for the first time in a while, and my daughter almost fell out of her chair.
That is sweet. It's kind of neat seeing them be human. You know, it's nice to see the human side of them. There is something called the snowplow murders, which we're not watching. I had not planned for this to take so long on this case. Oh my gosh, y'all. This is active. This is live reports of shots fired near CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia. The presence of a suspect with the alleged shooter, possible shots fired near CIA agent headquarters, has been reported on the local Twitter. Local law enforcement authorities are en route at this moment to the actual location. Wow. This is active. Sorry. I hope it was just an accidental misfire, but it sounds like there's a suspect. Y'all, this is breaking news. Breaking news. All right, honey boo, you've been in law enforcement and you've been in military. What's going on, babe? Come on, hop on. Be our corporal commentator. Be our court commentator. Would you please? So that's going on. I'll keep this running in the background just to make sure that everything's fine and keep an eye on it. Congratulations, baby. The day before my birthday. Now, I told him I'm going to see. I was going to see what he does for my birthday. I'm actually excited for the first time for my birthday. My birthday is a week away. No. How far? I haven't even. Oh, Google Calendar. Let me get my calendar. 19th? It is. It is 1 week away. No way. Toxic. Your birthday's March 20. Oh, that was September. Never mind. I was like, I thought two people in my group had a birthday with me. Well, it really would have been a party. But I'll have balloons and cake and here and we'll celebrate it together. I'll find out, babe. It better be big. I'm teasing him, y'all. I shouldn't tease him like that. I know my mother would be upset at me for doing that. I said it was big. Oh, let's watch.
Exactly as it happened. John was the Boston police officer. We went to the bar with a bunch of cops. Jen McCabe invited us to the Alberts. Last I ever talked to him when he got out of my car at Brian Albert's house.
Now for what's trending in true crime, defendant Karen Reed's retrial is fast approaching. She's accused of murdering her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe. And now she's finding herself at the center of a brand new docuseries. An investigation discoveries a body in the snow, the trial of Karen Reed. The defendant opens up her Massachusetts home to the cameras and to questions. It shows her and her legal team gearing up for her trial in the death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe. The first trial.
The first, okay. That's what I want to
Be
clarify.
clear, not the retrial that's coming up in a matter of weeks. Now, Reed insists that the allegations against her are not true.
So did you drive your car into John?
I did not drive my car into John. Didn't reverse it. Did not hit John with my car.
Is there any chance this was an accident?
There is zero chance this was an accident. There was zero chance John was hit by a vehicle.
You're tired of it. You spent so much.
No, I just,
I have to
no,
ask it.
I'm not tired of it. I hate answering it because I feel like I'm being so scrutinized. Like, did she blink 3 times or twice? And did she like smirk or look to the right or down and up and left or whatever? And like, it just feels so fake, even though it's true. I rather like explain everything else. And like, I did not hit John with my car. Like, I can't make it sincere enough.
The 5-episode ID docuseries continues tonight. We're asking, how is Karen Reed coming across in the docuseries? Here to discuss, I'm so pleased to welcome back on the show.
I like this woman, but her mouth is so full of Botox, she can't even do. She's a heart. She does. She's had the lip flip.
Award-winning investigative journalist, author, and podcaster M. William Phelps. Good morning to you, Matthew. Welcome back. If I could start with the first question we're asking this morning, how do you think Karen Reed is coming off in this docuseries?
Well, you know, honestly speaking, it's hard for me to watch it all at once. So I have to watch it in kind of snippets. And I mean, I deal with these people all day long. I write about them, I interview them. And what I see is a lack of empathy on her part. And it's very sickening to me because we've seen this throughout the entire ordeal where she minimizes her role and kind of maximizes the victim's role and the victim's family's role and the witness's role. So it's hard for me to watch that with any sort of credibility, if you will. And I'll just say, Drew,
Matthew, you know what? We're getting just pieces of your audio. It seems to be dropping out, and I want to hear every word you're sharing with us. Let's do this. We're going to take a look at your audio. No, that's okay. We're going to have our engineers take a look at it. I'm going to play another clip for our viewers, going to the point you just made about perhaps there's a lack of empathy we see with this woman when it comes to her boyfriend, the deceased, the real victim in all this, John O'Keefe. Let's take a listen to some of what she said about the fight for him.
I've never dated someone or been intimate with someone that they're just completely extricated. You can't get a hold of them anymore. It was just a weird feeling, but now I just want to save myself and I just want to be who I was before this. And I care less about fighting for John.
And that's not, you know what? I want to pause that. I had a situation where my husband was under trial. And I spent 3 years fighting for him. And then when it was done, I then had to fight for myself. And you get to the point really quickly that you have to put yourself first. Nothing you can do for John O'Keefe, nothing I could have done for my ex. You have to put yourself first. And there's a lot of people who don't understand that. And they look at it as being a cold-hearted witch, and you're not.
She said, I care less about fighting for John. She's saying that she's concerned with saving herself. Matthew, I think we have you loud and clear now. I hope you could hear what we just played. Oh, there we go. You got a backup mic. You're such a pro. Of course you do. Of course you got a backup mic. All right. Your thoughts when you hear her actually say out loud how her bigger concern is herself, not John. Does it surprise you?
No, not at all. I mean, I deal with these types of people all the time. And look, I'm not saying that she is a sociopath. I'm not here to say that. I'm not a psychologist or a doctor, but the sociopaths that I have interviewed, and I've interviewed 100 probably, they always marginalize victims in order to minimize their role and to prop themselves up as the victim. I'm just saying. One quote in the first episode of that documentary really stood out to me. And it's very short. And she said, either Jen, meaning Jen McCabe, is going down for this, or I am. And to me, that summed up the entire conspiracy in one quote, right? It's either Jen or me, and it's not going to be me. And you see, that's not getting at the truth of what happened. That's not talking about justice or, the facts. That's like waging war.
Right. I'm with you, Matthew. I'm with you on that. That was a moment where she said that about Jennifer McCabe. She has vilified this innocent witness, this woman who is a teacher, a PTA mom, a friend, a beloved friend of the O'Keeffes. And Karen Reed has positioned her to be her arch enemy. She's made her out to be the bad guy, all hanging her hat upon this Google search that the company Celebrate has come forward and said did not happen at 2:27 a.m. I can't say it enough.
The person who wrote the software even said so. Exactly,
Matthew. All right, I want to show you something else, how these two things intersected. Karen Reed's trial and this new docuseries. Yesterday, as you know, she was in court for a motions hearing ahead of her trial. And Hank Brennan, the brand new special prosecutor, took note of another change in Ms. Reed's story. Let's take a look.
We learned last night, for the first time on a public hearing of an episode, that the defendant suggests that Mr. O'Keefe took her vodka soda glass out of her car. Now, that is the first time we've had any statements from Ms. Reed suggesting that. And also, there was another statement regarding a claim that Ms. Reed pulled glass from John O'Keefe's face.
So another version of events from her. And Matthew, for any of our viewers who may not know, you did a brilliant podcast series on this case called 34 Fairview Road. It's outstanding. It's not the only podcast you've done several award-winning podcasts, Paper Ghost, Crossing the Line. But this is one that you've done as somebody just totally independent, coming in just to look at the facts. You did over 100 interviews in order to put the series out. Had you ever heard this story about her vodka soda glass and then her pulling the piece of glass off John O'Keefe's face?
No, this is new. And one thing I did say in the podcast that is kind of apropos to right now, and what Hank Brennan said yesterday, is the truth is a mountain. It doesn't move. It stands there on its own. And all of this, the glass up the nose, the changing of the stories.
Okay, good point. I could see where she could come across that way. But to the fact of herself and taking care of herself, I know that feeling and that switch. Okay, here we go, guys. We'll watch more later. Okay, let me turn the volume up. I think they're waiting for the jury to come in. Yep.
Mr. Banker, I'm putting up here, I don't know if it's anything you've seen before, but did
Why
you
is
know
your
that
sound so low?
Mr. Dawson and I saw
my
you for the
ears.
first time.
My
We
ears.
sought and obtained a court order allowing us to do so that was signed by Judge Cohen and by your attorney, Michael Simrins. Did you know that?
No, not at first. No.
So I'm going to just rather than ask you this be removed.
Oh, wow. It's an official court record with my name and a very
Snap.
signature.
May I, Jan?
Please.
So when we came to see you, Mr. Baker, did we first tell you that we had permission from the court and your attorney to see you?
Eventually, yes.
And did we tell you you could have your attorney present anytime you wanted to?
Yes.
Did you agree to?
Which you
speak
did
with
not.
us?
I did.
This was after you entered your plea and you were sentenced. Is that right?
Correct.
By the way, did the prosecution ever come to talk with you or ask you any questions?
Not that I know of, no. I never talked to them.
Were you ever informed that they had requested an opportunity to speak with you like we had?
I wasn't told, no.
And I think you've answered this several times, but let me ask you again. What did we tell you about telling the truth when you interviewed with us?
Just tell the truth. That's all you ever said.
And it sounds like at times you did and at times you didn't. Is that correct?
Correct.
But did we always tell you you had to tell the truth?
Correct.
Let me ask you this. The first time we came to see you, did you give us that letter that's been marked as an exhibit in this case?
I don't know which time I gave it to you, but I gave it to you early on.
Right. And did you tell us that you wanted us to turn it over or give it to Monica?
I did.
Did you know what else we were going to do with it?
What is it? Let me call for speculation,
Thanks.
Sue's facts and evidence.
Did we tell you what we were going to do with it other than give it to Monica?
Motion calls for hearsay.
Overruled.
After I gave it to you, you said you would have to turn it over to the prosecution.
Okay. And what about all the notes and reports that we prepared when we interviewed you? Let me just ask you briefly. Every time I came to see you, was Mr. Dawson present?
Yes.
And every time we came to see you, did you see him taking notes?
Yes.
Were you aware that everything we prepared regarding those interviews, including the notes and reports that Ms. Silverman was reading from, would be turned over to the prosecution?
You told me early on, yes, it would be.
Now, it's been 8 years since you were arrested in this case. Is that right?
Roughly, almost 8 years, yeah.
And it's been 6 years since you've spoken to Monica Sementilli. Is that right?
Yes. Been a long time.
You knew she did not want to speak with you after that, correct?
Correct.
So when you testified last week, had you been given anything in terms of reports, notes, or anything else to keep with you to help you prepare for your testimony in this case?
Nothing.
I don't know what that sound is,
Is it fair
but that
to
hurts.
say then you were being asked to recall events that happened 8 years ago during the questioning of both myself and Ms. Silverman?
Yes.
Did myself or Mr. Dawson or anyone else on the team ever tell you what to say?
Never.
Ever require you what to say other than to tell the truth?
Never. Just the truth is all you've been asking for.
Ever give you a script or an outline or anything to prepare you?
No.
Have you had an attorney representing you during the course of your testimony here like Mr. Austin had?
No.
You understood, or do you understand, that throughout this case, my client, our client, has been Ms. Sementilli, not you?
Correct.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have nothing further. Hold on. Oh, I do. Now I have marked as next in line, 630, 630. 630, it is a report or a printout from Amazon of Mr. Baker's credit card purchases during a period that reflected on the document.
So marked.
Mr. Baker, I'm going to put that up on the screen for you to see in a moment. Can we have a minute, Your Honor?
Sounds like a race car going through my hearing aids. Gee gads. Sorry. Oh, thought it was still going. My bad.
Your Honor, I'd like also mark as part of that exhibit a document prepared by Detective Gable seeking the item from Amazon and being provided it by Amazon.
That'll be part of 630.
Mr. Baker, we're going to put up on the screen, if you could just focus on the highlighted section that's in yellow there. Can you see that?
I do.
It's dated June 11, 2016. It's got your name on it. And is that your email address?
Yes.
Is that your email given to Amazon for purchases?
Yes.
If we could move over and look at the description of the item that you bought or purchased.
Oh, yeah.
And it's labeled GL300 real-time GPS tracker with mini case and extended battery. Do you recall purchasing that item?
Yes.
Was that one of the trackers that you had previously used, you said, to attach to one of the vehicles belonging to the Sementillis?
Yes.
Now that one you used an Amazon card, correct?
Correct.
And the other ones, how did you pay for them?
I paid cash and gave the money to somebody else.
Okay. Did this one you used your Amazon card?
Correct.
Oh, just for the record, Mr. Baker, the clothes you are wearing in court and have been wearing, are those clothes that I lent to you to wear?
Yes.
Did I tell you that if I gave you Armani clothes to wear, you would be more cooperative than Target clothes?
Absolutely not.
What?
Thank you, Honor.
Why? Does that even
We have
matter?
about 5 minutes while we set the courtroom up for the next witness. The evidence will probably be back here in 5 minutes.
Why did that even matter? I do not understand. That to me is irritating as hell. Just saying. Just saying. Really? I can't believe he said that. What do y'all think? I know, but still, that just, I don't know, it's crazy. Oh. Buttocks, okay. Oh, gosh. I'm sorry. I apologize. My breathing is a little strained at the moment. And I'm trying to set my watch face. Trying to set my watch face, y'all. I'm trying. Oh, got my honey boon. I got my honey boon. I forget to set up my watch. Now I'm wearing it all the time. Oh my gosh, there's so much to do. Wow. There's so much to do on watches. On jailhouse snitches will roll for most anything. Yeah, I know. They will. They can and will. They can and they will. And that is the way it goes. Okay. Now let's see how that goes. Did it save it? I want to use that one. Add. Okay. Yay! I put it on that one so I can do more with it, I guess. Yay! I even got my honey boo on it. Actually, I sound like somebody in my family. Just FYI, we are still in this situation, but there's no news reporter. This is a suspect with a gun with possible shots fired at the headquarters of the CIA, reported on Twitter. The location, Virginia. It's all in Virginia. Oh, I got to get this off. You can't see that. So we're just kind of keeping it cool. Be in prayer that there's nobody injured.
Before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Please rest today.
Have a seat in witness stand.
Rest. We want to rest.
And for the record, say and spell your first and last name, please.
Neil, Neil, Broom, Broom.
Good afternoon, Mr. Broom.
Good afternoon.
How are you employed?
I am the owner and president of Technical Resource Center. We're a computer forensics and cell phone forensics crime lab located in Los Angeles and Orlando.
Do you have any qualifications in relation to that?
Yes, sir. I have a bachelor's degree in computer forensics and digital investigations. I have a master's of science degree in
All right,
digital
babe.
forensics lab
Angela,
management.
get your
I
homework
have
done.
multiple certifications, including computer forensics examiner, Celebrite certified mobile examiner, meaning I can do cell phones, and certified fraud examiner. Fraud.
Mr. Broom, how were you previously employed?
I was a law enforcement officer in Gainesville, Florida, as well as a evidence technician, or what most people commonly call CSI.
Have you conducted any training or teaching in the field of computer forensics?
I have. I've trained over 3,000 people at the CIA, NSA, FBI, all the branches of military, government, law enforcement, in how to do computer forensics and information security, firewalls, routers, things like that.
Wow.
networks.
Do you have any books
Impressed
or published
much?
materials in relation to the same subject matter?
I do. I wrote a book, co-authored, titled Computer Forensics Jumpstart, and it was used as a forensics primer at a couple colleges.
Do you have any professional appointments?
I do. I'm on the Los Angeles County Superior Court panel of expert witnesses in the fields of computer forensics, cell phone forensics, and geolocation mapping analysis.
Have you testified as an expert witness before?
I have, in both federal courts and multiple state courts.
You mentioned you were a Celebrite certified mobile examiner. Have you analyzed the Celebrite data extraction for Monica Sementilli's iPhone 7?
Yes, sir.
Has there been more than one Celebrite data extraction this iPhone?
Yes, sir.
Do you know the years of those different Celebrite data extractions?
Yes, sir. A 2023 and a 2025 extraction.
Can you explain briefly what a data extraction is in relation to these different years?
Certainly. We have in the forensics field tools that you can, basically a computer that you plug a phone into. You then make a forensics image of the phone. After the image is done, you then process the phone, basically churns the data so it gets it so the investigator can review the data. And then when you're done reviewing the data, you can produce a report, and that report is typically called a Celebrite reader report. And that allows us to give the report to attorneys or detectives to review what forensics work we've done, the answers to the forensics work we've done.
Is it right that one of these was done in 2023 and one was done in 2025?
Correct.
But it's the same underlying phone data?
It's the same underlying phone data, and I actually validated that the specific information that I'm here to talk about did not change. It's exactly the same as it was both years.
Were these extractions done by you or someone else?
It was done by law enforcement. The only investigation I did is on information that was provided to me by the government.
Once there's been an extraction, do you use tools to analyze the data?
Yes, sir. In this case, and in most cases, Celebrite is the first tool that I use to do cell phone examinations. And then I typically validate the findings I have with another tool that's known as Axiom, AXIOM, from Magnet Forensics.
All right, Mr. Broom, I want to show you People's Exhibit 260, putting that on the overhead for you. Do you recognize this as a portion of the Celebrite reader report for Monica's iPhone 7?
Yes, sir, I do.
Turning to page 2. Do you see this highlighted entry in blue, web history?
Yes, sir.
Did you undertake your own analysis of these entries?
Yes, sir.
And which data extraction did this come from?
This is from the 2025 data extraction.
Let's take a closer look at it in relation to this highlighted entry. What does this show?
So first of all, at the top of the page, you see where it says timeline. This is a report that Celebrite provides, in this case, a calendar entry of everything that occurred on the phone. And the highlighted line, what we see is one artifact, one piece of data that's known as web history. We all know that as our browser history. And in this case, I can tell by looking over at the right that this is a Safari web browser on the iPhone. And we see an entry for January 22nd,
when you say on the right, is it this panel you're referring to, so the jury?
Correct. In the right above where your pin is, it says the word Safari. Just to your right, under source file, a little bit more to your right, it says library and then Safari.
Right. And sorry, please continue.
Again, January 22nd, 2017 at 5:12:51 p.m. And that has a description that says faux near me / Google search. And what that indicates to me was somebody conducted a Google search on an iPhone for faux near me.
And then underneath, there's a URL. Just briefly, what is a URL?
URL stands for Uniform Resource Locator. It's basically what you type into the web browser when you type in www, and then followed by whatever website you want to go to.
So for this 2025 data extraction, it gives a URL for Lifestyle Lounge. Is that what you see here?
That's correct. The M in front of it means it's a mobile website, and then lifestylelounge.com is the name of the website that this entry says it's pointed to.
On the left here, we have a red X. What does that signify?
The red X signifies that this data has been deleted. In other words, the browser history has been cleared and it's no longer active data on the phone. You couldn't view this data on the phone anymore. Only a forensics investigator can look at it.
Does deleted data differ from non-deleted data in terms of data extractions and analysis of data extractions?
It does. If we have deleted data, the forensics investigator needs to pay particular attention to that type of data because of the way the cell phone tools, I'll use the word resurrect or recreate that data, because remember I just said the data doesn't exist on the phone anymore for the user to see. It's not in a perfect format on the phone anymore. Instead, the analogy that I always use in my training classes is, let's say you had a report sitting on your desk and multiple page report. You go to lunch, you come back, and the report's gone, and you realize the trash can under your desk is literally right under where the report is. You go find the janitor and you say, did you take out the trash? He's like, yeah. He's like, did you remember seeing a big old report on the top? He's like, yes, sir. Then you run downstairs to the dumpster and you crawl in the dumpster and pull your big old report out. When you pull that report out, you could have a couple possibilities. All the pages could be perfect in straight order, no copy stains, everything's perfect. That would be sort of what we would find when we found a live file on a phone. On the other hand, you could have pages that were correct order, not messed up. You could have pages that were completely messy. You could have pages that were garbled up, copy stains, things like that. And I'm going to push the analogy just a little bit for this last example, but it's necessary for explaining electronic information. You could have one page that was data at the top or information at the top, and the bottom of that same page be from a different page. So in other words, it combined two pages together. It looks like one page, but it's really the top of one page and the bottom of another one. That's what we get when we are resurrecting files, and specifically we use the term data carving. We carve the files out of where they were stored at on the device.
So is there any additional analysis you need to undertake to double check that that carving has been carried out correctly?
Yes, sir. So first and foremost, you obviously would look at the data that's presented in the report and see if it makes common sense. Does this piece of data give you a piece of evidence that passes a smell test, that makes it look like it's legit? You also would then, in every instance that I could possibly think of, utilize a different forensics tool to validate the results of the first tool. If both tools, using the different built-in capabilities of the tool, look at the same piece of evidence and produce the same results, then you know both tools are doing the same thing, doing the right job. The evidence is valid. If, on the other hand, one tool shows one thing, the other tool shows something else, then you have a problem.
What about looking at a different data extraction from a different year?
Absolutely. If you have more than one extraction, which, by the way, totally valid concept, I always recommend if you have a case that started a long time ago and the evidence was originally looked at, say, years ago, that as you get closer to trial, you re-examine the evidence and see what you find. The reason for that is the evidence doesn't change. Everybody does what they're supposed to do with the evidence. We know it's the same piece of evidence as it was in multiple years ago. But what does change is the tools are constantly being upgraded. The tools are constantly being improved. Tools are constantly being changed. We all know as users of computers that change is great until it's not. Sometimes when you change a tool, you break something. And so you do have to be careful when you have your tools and they upgrade that it does everything it was supposed to do and doesn't break something that it was already working great.
So a tool from a different year could extract the data and give a different result from another year.
That's correct. We hope not, but it has happened.
And just to confirm, you also looked at another entry. This is now page 4 of People's Exhibit 260. Do you recognize this?
I do.
Later time entry of 5:45:35 on January 22nd, 2017.
Yes, sir, I do.
This shows the same information, phone in me, linked to a lifestyle lounge URL, is that right?
That's correct.
Also deleted.
Yes,
right?
sir.
So the same issues may arise when it's deleted. Right?
Yes, sir.
Right. Did you look at a different data extraction? Actually, the other side. Did you look at a different data extraction for another year for these same entries?
Yes, sir. The 2023 data extraction. Celebrate report.
Your Honor, I have here 10 pages from Monica's iPhone 7 data extraction. If I may mark it as defense exhibit, I believe it's 631.
Yes, so
Showing you page 1 of defense exhibit 631. Do you recognize this as the 2023 data extraction for Monica's iPhone 7?
Yes, sir.
And it's looking at the same time entry, is that right?
That's correct. In this particular entry, we're no longer looking at the timeline, the calendar function. Instead, we're looking at the Safari web history. So it's just a subset of what was on the calendar before. Again, it's the same entry for 5:12 and 51 seconds, has a title of Faux Near Me - Google search. That means a Google search was done for the words faux near me. And then it has URL, but this time the URL points to a Google search with the results faux near me. In other words, the Google page came up with the results of a search faux near me. In the previous examples we looked at, the search for faux near me came up with the results of lifestyle lounge.
You talked about doing a smell test, so using common sense. What did that tell you looking at these two different data entries?
If you do a Google search, you would expect the results that pop up to be the results of that search. Doing a Google search for faux near me and having the results pop up for lifestyle lounge just doesn't make sense.
So we have a 2023 extraction that says faux near me Google search linked to a Google URL. We have a 2025 extraction saying faux near me Google search but linked to a lifestyle lounge URL. So they're at odds, aren't they?
Yes, sir.
Why could that be? How could that be from your understanding of the data?
As I stated before, the tools change over time. The evidence stays the same. So I would put the blame on the tool being different than it was back in 2023.
And correct me if I'm wrong, is it essentially, it's in the way that a new tool resurrects or extracts this data, it might link together data differently than a previous tool?
That's correct.
Did you notice any other, sorry, actually, before I move on, page 2 of Defense Exhibit 630, this is then the corresponding entry at 5:45:35, January 22nd, 2017. This is also showing Fernand Google search. And this is also showing a Google URL, not a Lifestyle Lounge URL, correct?
That's correct.
I think you're referring to 631, counsel.
I'm so sorry, 631. That's correct.
Correct.
Did you notice any other issues in the data like this from reviewing the 2025 extraction?
I did.
And do you recognize this as a page from the 2025 extraction of Monica's iPhone 7?
Yes, sir.
Did you notice any issues, similar issues in the data from reviewing this?
Yes. If you look at the bottom line on the left, you see a search for Google Maps. This time the search was for EZGTR, and the resulting URL is a URL for Google Maps faux plus CA, meaning California. So a Google Maps search for something specifically called EZGTR gave a result of faux plus California. That doesn't pass the smell test. However, if you look at the URL directly above that line, you'll see Google Maps places EZGTR. So in other words, the URL for the line above is the correct answer to the Google Maps search for EZGTR. So this is another glitch that was in the Celebrate Reader report.
There's another way to put it in resurrecting the data for these entries. It's mixed up.
Correct.
These two pieces.
Correct.
And this is for the 2025 extraction.
That's correct.
Now, did you analyze the 2025 extraction with any other software?
I did.
Any other tools?
I did. As I mentioned earlier, I also used Magnet Forensics Axiom program.
Showing you page 4, Defense Exhibit 631. Is this the Axiom tool looking at the same data set?
It is.
And did you look for these entries at these specific times?
I did.
And what did you find?
I could not find an entry for 512, and as we'll see on the next page, 545. There were no entries from Axiom for the same two entries that have been in question.
So just to be absolutely clear, we see entries at 446:48, 513:06, but not one where you'd expect to see the in-between time.
Correct, at 512.
And the same here is now page 5, Defense Exhibit 631. There's an entry at 518:58, an entry at 546:32, but no entry in between.
Correct, no entry at 545.
What does that tell you?
That a second tool did not produce the same results as Celebrate did.
What does that tell you about the entry Google search Bernie and me linked to Lifestyle Lounge?
That you should not trust that entry. It's a glitch. It's not a true and factual validated finding.
Right, showing you page 6 of Defense Exhibit 631. What is this?
So when we, as a forensics investigator, look at the evidence, we don't just look at the reports that I've been showing you previous. We have the ability to drill down and look at views of the evidence like this. What this is a hexadecimal representation of the data that was stored on the phone. And if you look on the right side of the page, you can make out the English language words, www.google.com, search, the Q stands for the word query, and then it's a query for faux plus near plus me. So in other words, that Celebrate report we looked at before that showed a Google search with the answer being faux near me, this is what it actually looks like on the phone when the forensics investigator looks at the data.
This is the underlying data, is that a fair way to say it?
Correct. It's the underlying data that makes the Celebrate reader report.
And that is then interpreted by the reader for the 2025 extraction.
That's correct, which is given to attorneys or lawyers, attorneys or detectives to review.
Right. So from your analysis of the data, the entry for near me Google search linked to a URL lifestyle lounge, should that be relied upon?
No, it should not.
From your analysis of the data, is there any reliable data you found that shows a link between Fur Near Me Google search and Lifestyle Lounge on January 22nd, 2017?
No.
Just one quick last point. We talked about how these entries were deleted. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
From your analysis of the data, was there other web history that was deleted on Monica's iPhone 7?
Yes, there was.
Were there specific web history entries that were deleted, or more than that? Or what was your analysis?
More than that. Actually, the only web history that remained on the phone was for June 14th, 2017. All of the previous data history had been cleared. That's the term that Apple uses. You can go into your browser history, hit a button that says clear browser history, and now the browser history is gone off of the phone. After you do that, the only data that remains is any new data that's added after that. So the phone was cleared sometime between or near June 14th, 2017. All the data prior to that was deleted. So it wasn't a selective, only one thing was deleted. Everything was deleted.
We can see that here on the web history. This is page 7 of Defense Exhibit 631. Do you see this? Do you recognize this as the web history of Monica's iPhone 7?
I do. And one thing to point out is right next to the word web history, it says 9679. That's how many different rows of entries there had been. And all but, I believe it was 17 were deleted. So all the data was deleted except the one date of June 14th, 2017.
And this red yes under deleted here means this entry was deleted, correct?
That's correct.
And as you said, there were many items that were deleted, showing you page 9 from her web history, Defense Exhibit 631. Here, these are web history from target.com linked to buying printer ink, is that right?
Yes, sir.
These were deleted web history entries, correct?
Yes, sir.
And showing you page 10, there is web history relating to Maggiano's Italian food restaurant. This is something else that's deleted, for example, from the web history.
Correct.
I have no further questions, John.
You may cross.
Not impeachment. Now impeachment can begin.
Okay. I'm going to take it down on a layperson level, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So I think I'm going to assume that most people aren't as techie. That's not an offensive word, but tech related as you. So there's no question then, you're not here testifying that that phone that we've already heard testimony that's been associated with the defendant was searching Phone Near Me at 5:12 p.m. on January 22nd, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So there's no question here that Phone Near Me, and it's blue, it's hard to see, there's a search starting at 5:12, multiple searches, it looks like, from different phone numbers. That's not in question. You're not disputing that the Phone Near Me, that part isn't glitchy, right? That one's right.
That's correct. I do have to give one slight clarification.
Go ahead.
The user of the phone did not do the Google search. The Google search was sent to that phone via text message.
Okay. Right, we've heard evidence of that. So that came to the phone number then that we've already attributed to the defendant from a search from her husband. So we've already been through that. Now, the question is, you said that you analyzed, well, Celebrate, let's just start with Celebrate. Just as a refresher, Celebrate then is a company basically that allows for law enforcement and various government agencies to extract data from a phone, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And then when you get that data, you plug it into a machine. I'm being very simple here. Data comes out, but a normal person that doesn't understand it, can't read it. It's like ones and zeros and things like that, right?
Correct, and that's sort of the highlighted yellow screen I showed with the hexadecimal view. That's what
Okay.
we can see forensically.
So that's where you come into play, is that you are skilled in analyzing that data and putting it into a readable format.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that fair? And with that, then you testify, do you use Celebrate Reader?
The program that's used to analyze the data is actually called Celebrate Physical Analyzer. You then determine what information is important to your investigation. You highlight, bookmark those pieces of information, and then you generate a report of just the important information. And that report is then sent to Celebrate Reader. And I can send the Celebrate Reader data and application as a package to an attorney or to a detective to then be able to open up and review the data without having to have the full version of the tool that I pay for. The Celebrate Reader is a free version Celebrate gives so that we can pass it to the end user, being the attorneys or the detectives.
So by the time the detectives or the attorneys get it, then it's a normal form, like what we see, what we've been presenting in court, where we can see a search, it says phone near me, that makes sense now.
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
that kind of fair? All right. So when you talked about you are able then to search for what's important to the investigator, that means you can put in certain parameters for what you're looking for necessarily and kind of tailor the data specifically to what you're looking for.
That's correct. That's what the forensics person in the forensics lab does. Anybody knows, there's literally millions of items of data on a device, and that you can't keep track of that forever. You have to figure out what's important to your case and highlight just those pieces of information and then provide that to the attorneys or the detective.
Okay. So you're saying then your testimony and why you're here to testify is that when you ran it in 2020, well, you didn't run it, you ran it recently.
Correct.
You analyzed it recently, I should say. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So you used what you said physical analyzer, which means the tool that makes it make sense, makes it in a readable format.
Yes, ma'am.
So you did it in 2023, and in 2023, the 2023 phone number, right? And you didn't see a link from Phone Near Me you didn't see this, where it's linked to Lifestyle Lounge in your 2023 run.
I need to slightly correct one thing you
Go
said.
ahead.
I didn't do it until this week actually, but the extraction was an extraction the government made in 2023, did not contain the link to Lifestyle Lounge. The extraction the government did for 2025 did contain the Lifestyle Lounge entry.
Okay. So were you aware that when LAPD presented this to the defense and ran it in 2023, this is how it appears from law enforcement with the Lifestyle Lounge link based on the reader that they were using in 2023? You understand that?
No, ma'am, I do not. The data that I was provided for 2023 did not say Lifestyle Lounge. It said the Google search answer.
Right, but you used your own reader to run it, right?
No, ma'am, I used the reader that, I remember I said that you have Celebrate Reader, that you have the data and the application. That's exactly what I had, the data and the application that had been provided to me by the government.
But when the government ran it, it has Lifestyle Lounge, but when you ran it, you're saying you can't find that there.
That's correct. The 2023 extraction doesn't say Lifestyle Lounge in the copy that I was provided by the government.
Now, did you also know that the government, you're finding the government, but you mean LAPD, right?
Absolutely.
So LAPD also ran it, the same data in 2020. Did the defense, when they hired you to come here, give you the 2020 results as well?
They did.
Okay, and so on the 2020 results, again, the Lifestyle Lounge came up linked close to this phone near me on the 2020 dump from LAPD also.
I can't answer that one. I did not get to get a chance to run that one.
Okay, so they gave it to you, but you didn't look at 2020 to see if anything was consistent.
Correct, because I'd already found an inconsistency between 23 and 25. What 2020 would have said really doesn't matter at that point. I can't trust that evidence because it was wrong on one of the two.
So you're just said, forget it, no tiebreaker. Like, I'm going to go with two different versions, and I don't care what happened before.
Well, the tiebreaker was when I looked at the hexadecimal version. That's the tiebreaker.
Okay.
And the tiebreaker shows that the entry should have been a Google search for phone near me. Logic says if you search for a Google search for phone near me, the answer would be a Google search for phone near me.
All right. So then you were aware when you started that the defense told you that in 2020, 2023, and a phone dump again, run again in 2025, all came up from the government, LAPD detectives with the same exact result. You knew that when you started your analysis. That's why you went back to see if you could find or look for a discrepancy, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So do you believe that your 2023 phone dump, your reader that you're using was the most updated version?
So I used the government's version first, and then I updated to the most recent version of Celebrite Reader and used that one. And both of the times that both the old version and the new version both showed the same answer.
Okay. But then in 2025, you saw it again there. Is that right?
Yes.
So what you see on the screen, you saw the most recent while we've been in trial, and now you saw it again.
In 2025, I see the Lifestyle Lounge.
And then you testified that as it gets closer to trial, it's a good idea to re-examine the evidence because tools are constantly being upgraded, right?
Absolutely.
So 2025 seems like it would be the most reliable, correct? Because we're in trial. It's the most updated version of the reader of the same exact data phone dump, right?
So the data was exactly the same. I confirm that.
Mhm.
However, as I stated, sometimes when they update tools, they break things. And so my explanation would be Celebrite, unfortunately, broke the way it does the data carving in this particular version of the Celebrate Reader tool.
So, but it wasn't broken it was broken 2025, but it wasn't broken 2023 when you ran it. It's got to be broken 2025, the most updated version.
That's correct.
Okay. Does that mean it was glitchy in 2025?
I would say between the this entry and the ZGTR entry that also is glitchy, then yes, it would still be glitchy.
Was it glitchy in 2020 also then?
I can't speculate on that one.
Because you didn't look at 2020.
Correct.
Okay. And then the Lifestyle Lounge then, when you look at that URL though, you can see that it's directly in line with Phone Near Me. It's a Google search. The web history is directly in line with Lifestyle Lounge. If you read across the line, it says member ID. There's a number, then it says chat ID. So it appears to be that URL would be a direct way to log right into a website, right? Because there's a member ID and a chat ID, something of that nature, right?
Yes, the URL that is listed here would be exactly what you just said. However, I can't tie that URL to the date 1/22/2017 at 5:12.
But you can't not tie it either, right?
Yes, I can not tie it.
So you're not here to say that it's not possible that that Phone Near Me search was somehow linked to Lifestyle Lounge. You're not here to say that with definitivity, right?
On what date?
Well, the only date that's up there, 1/22.
Yes, I can definitively say at 5:12 on 1/22, there was not an entry for Lifestyle Lounge.
And we're looking at the 2025 dump. Are you still basing this on your glitchiness from 2023?
I'm basing this on the 2025 hexadecimal view of the data that I used.
I don't think anyone knows what that means.
The page that was up that had the highlighting and all the numbers and letters, that was the hexadecimal view. The detail that the forensics investigator gets to look at.
Okay, I don't think anyone knows what that means, but so we're at Phone Near Me, and then we get to Lifestyle Lounge. It's all linked right here in line. But your opinion is that there's no way those two are related, even though we're looking right at them on the screen on a printout from Celebrite Extraction, right?
If you do a Google search for Phone Near Me, the answer is not Lifestyle Lounge.
Okay.
The answer for Phone Near Me in a Google search would be Phone Near Me results.
All right. But for sure there was a search for Phone Near Me.
Done by the victim, yes.
And by the way, when were you hired on this case?
In 2023, but I was only brought back up to speed last Thursday.
And did you get paid for being here?
Yes, ma'am.
How much did you get paid?
I've been paid a $5,000 retainer so far.
Thank you.
Anything further, Mr. Jones?
Well, wait, no, one question. You said so far. What does that mean, so far?
I haven't billed for my time in the last week.
So $5,000 plus coming to court today to testify. Is that fair?
Plus my investigative time last weekend.
And I understand it's a business, so I'm not trying to insult you on that. And then so you have your time that you consulted, so $5,000 plus time consulting, plus your time to come to court today to testify that phone near me could not possibly be linked to lifestyle damage.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Jones?
Just very briefly, Ron. We're all looking at this same page, aren't we? What is written on this piece of paper on this page, as everyone can see, is phone near me, URL, lifestyle lounge, right?
Yes, sir.
What's written on this page could be completely wrong from your analysis, right?
In my opinion, it is completely wrong.
And you looked at the underlying data, which is the hexadecimal data, correct?
Correct.
And what did that tell you this entry should be?
Again, a Google search for phone near me should give a URL result of Google phone near me.
And that is exactly what is shown in the 2023 extraction report. Yes?
Correct.
That's this, isn't it?
Correct.
Right. No further questions.
Anything further by the people?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Groom, and you're excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Nick, our next witness?
I am now attest to your honor. Can I get it?
Please.
I hope they can rest and then get the jury done before the weekend so they don't have to come back next Friday and be under this pressure Monday through Thursday. The court is closed. Friday, they have to come back. I didn't know you can go to Google and you are in law enforcement, have them pull their service history. Well, it's yeah, I'm struggling. I'm sorry. I struggling. Would be nice for them to end early today. Oh Lord. Having a hard time. Sorry. I've been watching the situation with the shots fired. I have no new news. I put that. Is that right? No new news. Is that right? Yeah. What do I got going? Angela. No. I can sing bass. Y'all aren't gonna like what I have to show you. I am appalled at what I'm seeing. Here we go. Let me get it to share. Let me get it up. What? That's not what I told you to do. Pause. Window. Share. Share. Y'all. Rumor has it. Crowdfunding efforts is underway. Ooh, that's not what I wanted to do. There it is. For the recently dishonorable discharged Michael Proctor. Details are expected to be posted once they figure out how to convert food stamps into cash donation. That doesn't look like his wife. Y'all. Don't hurt. It laughs. It hurt. Don't laugh. It hurt. Don't laugh. Sorry. '80s music man Trooper Michael Proctor was dishonorably discharged from the Trooper Massachusetts State Police. He's been dishonorably discharged. Thank you, Angela. Love your
Face me and raise
stuff.
your right hand. Do you solemnly state that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Can you have a seat with the stand? And for the record, say and spell your first and last name, please.
Ian, I-A-N, Malatesta, M-A-L-A-T-E-S-T-A.
Thank you, Honor. Mr. Malatesta, what is your occupation?
I'm an attorney, licensed to practice law in California since
Uh-oh.
1977.
And do you have a specialty?
Whoa.
Family law.
Can you give us a little background of your experience in this area of the law?
Well, after law school, I practiced with two prominent law firms.
Always are prominent.
Grayson, Gross, Friedman, and Phillips in Westwood, and then Eisfelder and Eliezer in also in Westwood. And I've been on my own as a sole practitioner since 1989.
Are you currently practicing or retired or in between?
Actually, I'm in between. I'm a mediator.
And when did you retire from your active practice?
May of 2023.
And do you have any specific experience or background in the area of family law, community property, specifically divorce cases?
Well, I've handled over 1,000 divorce cases myself. I've represented different people, actors on Melrose Place and Cheers.
Oh, come on. Don't do that. That's tacky.
myself, the executive producer of Law and Order, the executive producer of Everybody Loves Raymond.
I really hate, he's not name dropping, but he is. And that's tacky. Hi, honey. Yep.
I represented.
Did you represent any normal people?
Well, 98% were working people. That's how I built my practice.
And how many of these cases through the years involved divorce?
All divorce or just prenuptials or paternity. But all family law related issues. Spousal support, child support, paternity. You name it in family law, I've tried it.
I don't want to touch that.
Mr. Malatesta, did I retain you
Hey,
to be
Jennifer,
an expert
how
in
are
this case if
you?
needed
I'm
in the area of family law, divorce, and community property?
You did. I was retained in February of 2025.
And are you being paid for your testimony and research and investigation today?
I am.
What is your fee? I mean, what have we paid you?
I was paid a retainer of $7,500, and I'm billing at my rate, which has been the same rate for 20 years, which is $550 an hour.
How much time would you estimate that you've put in so far in investigating the facts of this case as it relates to divorce and community property?
I estimate that the retainer will cover. I was here on February 10th to hear the testimony of Miss Ebersbacher. I was here to hear all of that, and then today, and I prepared a report regarding her testimony, and I estimate that the retainer will cover all of that. I've been on call for a while, and I'm not going to worry about that. And when you and the court need me, I'll be available, and I'm here today to testify.
You understand it's
you
hard to
just
predict how long a witness may take.
Yeah. Let's,
Hopefully yours will not be 3.5 days.
yeah.
Okay. Did I,
Oh.
if you were here for the testimony of Ms. Ebersbacher, did you observe what was marked as Exhibit 126, which is labeled Death versus Divorce at the top under Sementilli? Do you see that?
Yes, I have that. I reviewed that.
Okay, and it's right on the screen to your right, I believe, if that's the same report, is it?
Yes.
All right. And did you hear Ms. Ebersbacher testify regarding the issue of alimony as it might apply to the question of divorce versus death in this case?
I did hear her testimony.
All right. And on this chart, which has been discussed.
Hey guys, I got to run my daughter home. It'll be about 15, 20 minutes. I'll be right back. I'm going to leave the camera thing up and mute it. I will be monitoring on the phone. I gotta go take care of business. I'll be right back.
Displayed. Did you see a section that dealt with the issue of alimony?
No, I did not.
Right? And you understand that this chart is supposed to have indicated or documented certain amounts that Ms. Sementilli would receive upon the death of her husband versus the divorce of her husband. You see that?
Yes, that was what she was, I think, trying to do.
Okay.
But spousal support was left out, which is the major issue in a 20-some-year marriage, which I was told the Sementillis had.
So I was going to ask you then, you heard her then opine on the issue of alimony, but indicated it was not on the chart, correct?
Correct, I heard that.
All right, and in your opinion, would that be a major factor in determining whether or not financially it was more beneficial for Monica Sementilli's husband to be deceased or to be the subject of a divorce?
Yeah, in my opinion, it would have been the main issue. It would have been $1 million issue if I was representing the family, either one of them.
Can you explain then, based on the hypothetical of the deceased having been involved with the defendant in a 20-year marriage with a salary between $200,000 and $300,000, can you opine on what the potential alimony would have been had there been a divorce proceeding?
Sure. I mean, that's as a family law attorney, I've handled spousal support, basically every case. But I believe Ms. Ebersbacher said that Mr. Sementilli was making approximately $280,000, which was the number I used, and that Mrs. was earning somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000. So in family law, that would have been the single most important issue to deal with.
Why?
Because it's a long-term marriage under Family Code 4320, and a woman in her position would have been entitled to basically 1/3 of his income based on the length of the marriage and the other factors, lifestyle, do they have minor children, separate property, any other factors. So it's like 10 factors. And I value that as $1 million issue. I basically, in my mind, if I was representing either one of them, you represent a husband, you try to buy out spousal support, or
what does that mean?
Well, buy out. Some people in marriages are worth marriages of duration of, like, let's say they were married, just use this, 8 years. And she would be entitled to basically 4 years in marriage and 8, because lengthy marriage under the code is defined as any marriage over 10 years. This is way above that. This is 20 some years.
All right.
So in an 8-year marriage,
Okay.
let me finish. In an 8-year marriage, she would be entitled to 4 years. So you can calculate what that 4 years is worth. Okay. So when you represent a husband, you can buy out that. You can
Like a lump payment?
A lump payment, or you can trade assets. And that's really important because if you trade it, then you have to worry about going back to court on modifications, court time and lawyers, et cetera. Okay. So in a long-term marriage, I valued that her support would have been minimal, let's say 10 years at $7,500 a month, which is $90,000 a year times 10 years is $900,000. Now comes the major issue of tax on that, which Ms. Ebersbacher didn't discuss at all. But
Explain to us then what the tax situation was, for lack of a better term, in 2017.
Taxable to the recipient, deductible by the payor, meaning Mr. Sementilli gets to deduct all the spousal support on his tax return should they separate in a divorce, should they get divorced or just separate.
So it's going to cost him less in net funds.
Correct.
What about the benefit to her financially?
She has to pay tax on all the money on spousal support, but she wasn't making that, which is what we found over the years. And, you know, it's wonderful now because you see, you know, I represent an executive at Disney who's what happened with President Trump in his first term is they changed the law that had been in existence for 75 years. And now, as we sit here today, the payor, in this case, who would have been Mr. Sementilli, he can't deduct it anymore.
And what about the recipient?
She gets it tax-free, which is much harder to make a deal because there's no taxes involved.
But let's now go back to the year of 2017, which this chart was based on,
right?
Which was the year that Mr. Sementilli was murdered. How would the alimony have affected the figures in this chart?
Well, you can add $1 million to this chart.
On what column?
She didn't have a column for it. There's not one column for it.
Well, is there a divorce column and a death column at the top?
She had a difference of $1.5 million, death greater than divorce.
And if you would have added the amount that you're indicating that Ms. Sementilli would have been entitled to in alimony, how would that have affected that chart?
I would have deducted $1 million from that number before I analyzed all her other assets, which, like the stock options is completely wrong. But
okay.
But I would have deducted $1 million.
Which would have
Can I explain further why?
Sure.
It's my professional experience that in a long-term marriage of 20 years, that she could have gotten support. Many judges in LA, and all my work, 90% of my work, maybe 95, is in 2 blocks away on Hill in LA County. Miss Ebersbacher is a forensic accountant, not an attorney, from San Diego.
Well, tell us what your opinion would be based on as opposed to hers.
That an LA County judge easily could give her retention of jurisdiction support, meaning support for life, meaning that she could get it for, they were in their 40s. I mean, she could have gotten it until he retired at 65.
Whatever his age was at death, he would.
Well, so support, there are the terminating factors in support are remarriage, death of either spouse, or, quote, further order of court.
All right, so let's take that one at a time. If you are divorced and your alimony is awarded, you talked about $7,500 a month. That would be in place until either Ms. Sementilli remarried or Mr. Sementilli died,
Or
correct?
she died.
Oh, she died.
Or she died.
What if he died and she was getting alimony?
Terminates.
Okay. And
which is
go on.
I'm just trying to move it for you, but
Help me out. I'm still married.
no, spousal support for his death. It's not on this chart, but in every case that I handle spousal support, a major factor is life insurance on the payor's spouse's life for the recipient. So I always would make sure, like in this case, if the Sementillis come to me, I would make sure that Mr. Sementilli had life insurance, either through substantial life insurance, either through employment or a separate policy to protect, it's in the code, security for support. Because upon his untimely demise, he has a heart attack and dies, she gets no more spousal support.
Okay. So you see on this chart, which is in front of you, there is a section for life insurance. Is that correct?
I see it, 24,
Okay.
line 24.
All right. So that's life insurance proceeds, which under the estate the figure is $720,000. You see that?
I see it.
Then you see on the right, there's another figure of 720, and that goes over to the final line of 720,000.
I see it.
Now, if they got divorced, what you're saying is that the life insurance, since alimony would end upon his death, would be protected by the life insurance. Is that correct?
Correct.
But
I couldn't tell from this, you'd have to look at the footnote. I couldn't tell from this whether that was a separate life insurance policy or this was the policy from his employment that he designated her 40%, 40%.
Okay, let's assume that it's from the employment. That's where he obtained it from. What you're saying is you were informed that it was split 40% for her and then 40% for the children. Is that correct? 60% for the children.
60%, exactly. There were different policies split different ways, but that's basically, she was getting 40%. But this would be a good protection for her security for spousal support if it was already in existence. Because I'm sorry to say husbands and wives, because I'm an old timer, but I make husbands get life insurance to protect, in the event of their demise, to protect the wife who would lose the spousal support.
All right, so let me try to put that in layman terms.
Okay.
If Ms. Sementilli divorces Mr. Sementilli and gets your figure of $7,500 a month, that could carry on until he was 65 or she remarried, correct?
Absolutely correct.
All right. But if he dies, as he did in this case, he was murdered, then alimony would no longer be paid, obviously.
Absolutely correct.
Okay. So simply put, he would be worth far more had he lived because he'd be paying alimony than upon his death. Is that correct?
In my professional opinion, there was no question he'd be worth more that he stay alive than he die.
Plus, if he lived and there was a divorce, she not only would get alimony, but upon his death, the life insurance would still apply. Is that correct?
She would get life insurance for security for yes, that is correct.
Well, security or not, as long as he continued the life insurance, he'd be paying alimony, and upon his death, that would be, you say that there would have to be security for her, or she'd have to be a beneficiary, correct?
Yeah, if this was just through the employment, I probably would have gotten even more insurance for her to protect her spousal support.
You're bragging.
No, I mean, it's really, I think I think, you're hired to do a job.
Is there any question in your mind that he, just from a financial point of view, was worth far more alive than dead?
Oh, worth far more alive than, absolutely. First of all, you have to assume he's going to create greater earning power to be alive, and like he's making 280, okay, and he's a young man. I don't know. Only what I've heard here. I don't know how old he was upon his demise, but you have to assume he's going to make more. You have to assume that if I had handled this, the house. Okay.
He was 49 years old.
Okay, 49 years old. So his life expectancy, and he's going to live and make more money. The assets. You can.
In other words, if he's alive, as long as they're married, she's living the same lifestyle, we would hope, as she was at the time in 2017, correct? Or even greater, you're saying?
Well, the purpose of a family law attorney is also to try to get, in the event of a divorce, where you're now taking a paycheck or paychecks and dividing it in half, to try to keep both spouses in as close to the lifestyle that they have, upon divorce. That's why you can see they sold the house. If you want to get to the house issue.
Well, it looks like it was divided equally. Does that make sense?
Right. But in a divorce, the worst thing you can do is to sell the house. What you try to do, if I represent Ms. Sementilli, I would try to get her the house and give him other equalizing assets, because the house is going to appreciate. You can imagine what houses in LA County appreciate in 5 or 10 years, and she's got a house to live in. So let's assume the equity was $500,000, the net equity. Okay. If you don't sell the house, if you make a deal, there are no costs of sale. You don't deduct that $100,000 that's on here. There are no broker's costs.
That's the cost that was involved in selling the house, which was sold.
Right. You want to avoid that if you can, and try to make a deal between spouses, because then you don't have that. You also then have, if you represent wife, in this case, she has a place to live for the next 10, 20 years. You don't know what the mortgage rates are. Maybe they were low. Now they're 6, 7%. Maybe they were lower. So there's so many factors that would have been better for her in a divorce than any untimely death for him.
And just to summarize, those factors involve the increase in the value of the home. It involves the alimony, and it involves the life insurance that you would try to maintain to protect her if he had an untimely death, correct?
Correct.
All right. One last item I asked you to look at.
Okay.
And that was the options.
Correct.
Do you see a figure of $935,000 halfway down? That's line 16. You see that?
I do.
Okay. And if you go to your left, do you see the amounts of $795,000 and $140,000? You see that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And on the far side to the right, there was a figure of $537,000, which Ms. Eversbacher said would be the advantage to Ms. Sementilli for those options upon the death of her husband in 2017. You see that?
I do.
Now, was that based on the value of the options in 2017? Or for some reason, did Ms. Eversbacher calculate the value of the options in 2024?
Yeah, that figure is 100% wrong. You'd have to look at it, footnote E, but it's my understanding, reading E, that the options were worth $74,000 at the time the time of his 2017, and they became 7 years later. After everything happened, apparently they became an E. She even says the value of the 74,000 was, the value of the 900,000 is in February of 24. So 7 years later, the stock options are now worth 900,000. Now you go back to the analysis of the divorce. What's my job?
Worth perhaps a lot more because they don't know what they're going to be worth down the road, and you would figure that out to the best of your client's advantage if it was a divorce, correct?
Objection, that's speculation.
Correct, because depending upon who I'm representing in the divorce, there's a major analysis there because you don't know in 17 or 18, do they divide the options? Does one party buy the other's interest in the option? Like he could write her a check for 37,000 and he could own all the options. Okay. They could divide the options if the company allows them to divide them. In a divorce, which is my expertise, you have the issue of when is the option exercisable? When does it vest? Like Ms. Ebersbacher on line 16 divided the options into, I assume, she didn't testify to this, well, maybe she did. CP is community property, SP is separate property. I have no idea how she came to that characterization of the options, because if it's separate property in a divorce, Mr. Sementilli would not have to divide that with his wife.
But if the options were obtained while they were married, wouldn't it normally be community property?
It would.
Okay. So again, without getting too complicated, all this in the long run is dependent on whether the options go up or down in a divorce case. But in death, there's a specific amount it's worth on the time of death. Is that correct?
Correct, because some options, they turn into, they go underwater. They're not.
If the stock went down.
Stock went down.
Finally, was there any indication there or consideration of child support for the child who was under the age of 18? And I think she was already 16 and the other one 18, but at least for those 2 years, would he have been required to pay child support?
He would have, and it would have depended upon, the amount would have depended upon the amount of his custodial time. Like a lot of dads have 50% time of the child, which would reduce child support. But child support's in LA County, not like spousal support. Child support's very easy to obtain. It's, we had up to just recently a computer program called the DisoMaster, where you plug in income and it gives you child support.
But are we talking about a small amount, since in 2 years the minor child would be 18?
Correct.
And at that point, there would no longer be child support as a matter of law. Is that
Unless the child's a full-time high school student, at which case child support goes to 19.
All right. So in summary then, if I asked you, if you were preparing this chart and determining whether or not, for the simple question, which no one should have to face, obviously, what was the worth of Mr. Sementilli in death versus divorce, what would your answer be?
In my opinion, it would have been beneficial for her that he live, and she go through a divorce.
For the reasons you stated.
For the reason I stated, that the options would have been 74,000, not 900. The house.
Well, you've
talked about the house, talked about spousal.
Okay, for the reasons you've stated, and the main reason still remains the alimony, which was not even calculated. Is that
Can
correct?
I say one more thing?
Sure. Why not?
When I said,
Yes, that's, I don't know how they do things in family law, but the evidence goes, sir. Here we have to follow it, sustained.
Is there another factor that you wanted to cite to the issue of death versus divorce?
yes, well, Miss Ebersbacher, I took a note when I was here on February 10th, and she said that she thought that spousal support would be for a period of 5 years. To me, that would be malpractice.
So you're saying it would be how long?
Well, she included temporary, which is the time of separation to time of divorce, which in LA County takes approximately 2 years. And then she added on 3 years. Three years in a 21-year marriage is completely.
Hey, y'all, thank you so much. I had to run my daughter home. Howdy, Miss Yana. How you doing? I have missed you, but thank you for being here. Thank you for liking. And thank y'all for your patience and understanding. My daughter's boyfriend has a sister who's graduating high school, and they're trying to take her graduation pictures, and the gown that they borrowed for the school for the photos wasn't turned back in. And we have one at home. So we ran and dropped her off so she could get that and take it to them and save the day. So is he a sleazeball? How's it going? Y'all talk to me.
Unacceptable.
What is acceptable?
A minimum of 10 years. They're married 21 years. It's a lengthy marriage. So.
And could be greater than 10 years.
It could be greater than 10, but to me, well, she's not a lawyer.
Well, that's a major factor on this chart.
Well, major factor to me.
Tell me about him.
That she told the court and testified to 5 years, temporary and permanent, was, I would never accept any of that in my 47.
Assistant.
Yana, look.
We're gonna take I know you don't want to take a break. I need to get my staff has to go to the bathroom. So we're gonna take about 10 minutes. Is that okay with you? The admin supplies. See you back in 10 minutes.
Okay, I'm gonna go back 10 minutes. I'm gonna go back a little more.
90%.
And I'll speed it up.
Worth marriages of duration of, like, let's say they, and she would be entitled to basically 4 years of marriage and 8, because lengthy marriage under the code is defined as any marriage over 10 years. This is way above that. This is 20 some years.
All right.
So in an 8-year marriage,
okay.
Let me finish. In an 8-year marriage, she would be entitled to 4 years. So you can calculate what that 4 years is worth. Okay. So when you represent a husband, you can buy out that. You can
a lump payment?
A lump payment, or you can trade assets. And that's really important, because if you trade it, then you have to worry about going back to court on modifications, court time, and lawyers, etc. Okay. So in a long-term marriage, I valued that happened with President Trump in his first term is they changed the law that had been in existence for 75 years. And now, as we sit here today, the payor, in this case, who would have been Mr. Sementilli, he can't deduct it anymore.
What about the recipient?
She gets it tax-free, which is much harder to make a deal because there's no taxes involved.
But let's now go back to the year of 2017, which this chart was based on,
right?
Which was the year that Mr. Sementilli was murdered. How would the alimony have affected the figures in this chart?
Well, you can add $1 million to this chart.
On what column?
She didn't have a column for it. There's not one column for it.
Well, is there a divorce column and a death column at the top?
She had a difference of $1.5 million, death greater than divorce.
And if you would have added the amount that you're indicating that Ms. Sementilli would have been entitled to in alimony, how would that have affected that chart?
I would have deducted $1 million from that number before I analyzed all her other assets, which, like the stock options is completely wrong. But but I would have deducted $1 million.
They're completely wrong.
Why?
Sure.
It's my professional experience that in a long-term marriage of 20 years, that she could have gotten support. Many, many judges in LA, and all my work, 90% of my work, maybe 95, is in 2 blocks away on Hill in LA County. Ms. Ebersbacher is a forensic accountant, not an attorney, from San Diego.
Well, tell us what your opinion would be based on as opposed to hers.
That an LA County judge easily could give her retention of jurisdiction support, meaning support for life, meaning that she could get it for, they were in their 40s. I mean, she could have gotten it until he retired at 65.
Whatever his age was at death, he would.
Well, so support, there are the determining factors in support are remarriage, death of either spouse, or, quote, further order of court.
All right, so let's take that one at a time. If you are divorced and your alimony is awarded, you talked about $7,500 a month. That would be in place until either Ms. Sementilli remarried or Mr. Sementilli died, correct?
Or she died.
Oh, she died.
Or she died.
what if he died and she was getting alimony?
Terminates.
Okay. And
which is,
go on.
I'm just trying to move it for you, but
Help me out. I'm still married.
no, spousal support for his death. It's not on this chart, but in every case that I handle spousal support, a major factor is life insurance on the payor's spouse's life for the recipient. So I always would make sure, like in this case, if the Sementillis come to me, I would make sure that Mr. Sementilli had life insurance, either through substantial life insurance, either through employment or a separate policy to protect. It's in the code, security for support, because upon his untimely demise, he has a heart attack and dies, she gets no more spousal support.
Okay. So you see on this chart, which is in front of you, there is a section for life insurance. Is that correct?
I see it 24, line 24.
All right. So that's life insurance proceeds, which under the estate the figure is $720,000. You see that?
I see it.
Then you see on the right, there's another figure of 720, and that goes over to the final line of 720,000.
I see it.
Now, if they got divorced, what you're saying is that the life insurance, since alimony would end upon his death, would be protected by the life insurance. Is that correct?
Correct.
But
I couldn't tell from this, you have to look at the footnote. I couldn't tell from this whether that was a separate life insurance policy or this was the policy from his employment that he designated her 40%.
Okay, let's assume that it's from the employment. That's where he obtained it from. What you're saying is you were informed that it was split 40% for her and then 40% for the children. Is that correct? 60% for the children.
60%, exactly. There were different policies split different ways, but that's basically, she was getting 40%. But this would be a good protection for her security for spousal support if it was already in existence. Because I'm sorry to say husbands and wives because I'm an old timer, but I make husbands get life insurance to protect in the event of their demise, to protect the wife who would lose the spousal support.
All right, so let me try to put that in layman terms.
Okay.
If Ms. Sementilli divorces Mr. Sementilli and gets your figure of $7,500 a month, that could carry on until he was 65 or she remarried, correct?
Absolutely correct.
All right. But if he dies, as he did in this case, he was murdered, then alimony would no longer be paid, obviously.
Absolutely correct.
Okay. So.
But the insurance would be paid.
Would be worth far more had he
would
lived because he'd be paying alimony
compensate for
than upon
that.
his death. Is that correct?
In my professional opinion, there was no question he'd be worth more that he stay alive than he die.
Plus.
But she didn't care about
if he
that. She
lived
just
and there
wanted
was a
out.
divorce, she not only would get alimony, but upon his death, the life insurance would still apply. Is that correct?
She would get life insurance for security yes, that is correct.
Well, security or not, as long as he continued the life insurance, he'd be paying alimony, and upon his death, that would be. Oh, you say that it would have to be security for her, or she'd have to be a beneficiary, correct?
Yeah. If this was just through the employment, I probably would have gotten even more insurance for her to protect her spousal support.
You're bragging.
No, I mean it's really. I think it's.
You're bragging.
You're hired to do a job. I mean.
Is there any question in your mind that he, just from a financial point of view, was worth far more alive than dead?
Oh, worth far more alive than absolutely. First of all, you have to assume he's going to create greater earning power to be alive, and like he's making two.
But crazy, lustful bitches don't care. They don't always think it through.
Baby, okay, and he's a young man. I don't know. What I've heard here. I don't know how old he was upon his demise, but you have to assume he's going to make more. You have to assume that if I had handled this, the house. Okay.
He was 49 years old.
Okay, 49 years old. So his life expectancy, and he's going to live and make more money. The assets. I mean, you can.
In other words, if he's alive, as long as they're married, she's living the same lifestyle we would hope as she was at the time in 2017, correct? Or even greater, you're saying?
Well, the purpose of a family law attorney is also to try to get, in the event of a divorce, where you're now taking a paycheck or paychecks and dividing it in half, to try to keep both spouses in as close to the lifestyle that they have, upon divorce. That's why you can see they sold the house. If you want to get to the house issue.
Well, it looks like it was divided equally. Does that make sense?
Right. But in a divorce, the worst thing you can do is to sell the house. What you try to do, if I represent Ms. Sementilli, I would try to get her the house and give him other equalizing assets, because the house is going to appreciate. You can imagine what houses in LA County appreciate in 5 or 10 years, and she's got a house to live in. So let's assume the equity was $500,000, the net equity. Okay. If you don't sell the house, if you make a deal, there are no costs of sale. You don't deduct that $100,000 that's on here. There are no broker's costs.
That's the cost that was involved in selling the house, which was sold.
Right. You want to avoid that if you can, and try to make a deal between spouses, because then you don't have that. You also then have, if you represent wife in this case, she has a place to live for the next 10, 20 years. You don't know what the mortgage rates are. Maybe they were low. Now they're 6, 7%. Maybe they were lower. So there's so many factors that would have been better for her in the divorce than any untimely death for him.
And just to summarize, those factors involve the increase in the value of the home. It involves the alimony, and it involves the life insurance that you would try to maintain to protect her if he had an untimely death, correct?
Correct.
All right. One last item I asked you to look at.
Okay.
And that was the options.
Correct.
Do you see a figure of $935,000 halfway down? That's line 16. You see that?
I do.
Okay. And if you go to your left, do you see the amounts of $795,000 and $140,000? You see that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And on the far side to the right, there was a figure of $537,000, which Ms. Ebersbacher said would be the advantage to Ms. Sementilli for those options upon the death of her husband in 2017. You see that?
I do.
Now, was that based on the value of the options in 2017, or for some reason did Ms. Ebersbacher calculate the value of the options in 2024?
Yeah, that figure is 100% wrong. You'd have to look at it, footnote E, but it's my understanding, reading E, that the options were worth $74,000 at the time the time of his 2017, and they became 7 years later. After everything happened, apparently they became an E. She even says the value of the 74,000 the value of the 900,000 is in February of 24. So 7 years later, the stock options are now worth 900,000. Now you go back to the analysis of the divorce. What's my job? I handled the CFO of public storage. The only issue in the case was millions of dollars worth of stock options.
So what should have been considered in a death versus divorce analysis, the time of death or 10 or 8 or 7 years later?
Well, the issue there becomes, do the parties, let's assume they separate and they're getting divorced in 2017 or 2018 or 2019, okay? It takes approximately 2 years to get, in my professional opinion, to get a division of property in a divorce case.
But let me ask you this. In death, would not the value of the options at the time of death be the figure that you would consider?
Well, that's a tough question.
Not in a divorce, just if you die.
Well, I don't know. In death, can the estate? I don't know. That's not my area of expertise. But in death, does the estate invoke the options? One thing she didn't deal with, Ebersbacher.
Excuse me. There's no objection. So you know what?
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I'm just going.
Yeah, I know.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm just talking about the value of the options was what in 2017?
$74,000.
And the value in 2024 was what?
$900,000.
Okay, and we went over this with another witness, Ms. No, I believe. And in your opinion, if you were evaluating the value of the options at the time of death in 2017, would it be what they were worth in 2017?
Oh, absolutely.
What you're saying is if she got divorced, then you're talking about the options as being worth perhaps a lot more because they don't know what they're going to be worth down the road, and you would figure that out to the best of your client's advantage.
She does this a lot.
Correct, because depending upon who I'm representing in the divorce, there's a major analysis there because you don't know in 17 or 18, do they divide the options? Does one party buy the other's interest in the option? Like he could write her a check for $37,000 and he could own all the options. Okay. They could divide the options if the company allows them to divide them. In a divorce, which is my expertise, you have the issue of when is the option exercisable? When does it vest? Like Ms. Ebersbacher on line 16 divided the options into, I assume, she didn't testify to this. Well, maybe she did. CP is community property, SP is separate property. I have no idea how she came to that characterization of the options because if it's separate property in a divorce, Mr. Sementilli would not have to divide that with his wife.
But if the options were obtained while they were married, wouldn't it normally be community property?
It would.
Okay. So again, without getting too complicated, all this in the long run is dependent on whether the options go up or down in a divorce case. But in death, there's a specific amount it's worth on the time of death. Is that correct?
Correct. Because some options, they turn into, they go underwater. They're not.
If the stock went down.
Stock went down.
Finally, was there any indication there or consideration of child support for the child who was under the age of 18? And I think she was already 16 and the other one 18, but at least for those 2 years, would he have been required to pay child support?
He would have, and it would have depended upon, the amount would have depended upon the amount of his custodial time. Like a lot of dads have 50% time of the child, which would reduce child support. But child support's in LA County, not like spousal support. Child support's very easy to obtain. It's, we had up to just recently.
That doesn't sound like the way it is in Texas, honey.
A computer program called the Disomaster, where you plug in income and it gives you child support.
But are we talking about a small amount, since in 2 years the minor child would be 18?
Correct.
And at that point, there would no longer be child support as a matter of law. Is that
Unless the child's a full-time high school student, at which case child support goes to 19.
all right? So in summary, then, if I asked you, if you were preparing this chart and determining whether or not, for the simple question, which no one should have to face, obviously, what was the worth of Mr. Sementilli in death versus divorce, what would your answer be?
In my opinion, it would have been beneficial for her that he live, and she go through a divorce.
For the reasons you stated.
For the reason I stated, that the options would have been 74,000, not 900. The house.
Well, you've
talked about the house, talked about spousal.
Okay, for the reasons you've stated, and the main reason still remains the alimony, which was not even calculated.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure. Why not?
When I said,
Yes, that's, I don't know how they do things in family law, but the evidence goes, sir. Here we have to follow it, sustained.
Is there another factor that you wanted to cite to the issue of death versus divorce?
yes, well, Miss Ebersbacher, I took a note when I was here on February 10th, and she said that she thought that spousal support would be for a period of 5 years. To me, that would be malpractice.
So you're saying it would be how long?
Well, she included temporary, which is the time of separation, to time of divorce, which in LA County takes approximately 2 years. And then she added on 3 years. Three years in a 21-year marriage is completely unacceptable.
What is acceptable?
A minimum of 10 years. They're married 21 years. It's a lengthy marriage. So.
And could be greater than 10 years.
Could be greater than 10, but to me, that was, well, she's not a lawyer.
Well, that's a major factor on this chart.
Well, major factor to me, and the fact that she told the court and testified to 5 years, temporary and permanent, was, I would never accept.
It was
any
her
of that
humble
in my
opinion.
47.
You're not here to bash the other person.
We're going to take I know you want to take a break. I need to get my staff has to go to the bathroom. So we're going to take about 10 minutes. Is that okay?
Okay, now we're back up to normal.
You just did the divorce side, but you didn't touch the death side.
Correct. The death side, I looked at her numbers, but I couldn't tell you.
I got it.
Okay.
So you were hired then in the middle of trial after we started in February of this year to write a report, come in and testify in court, correct?
That is correct. February, I wasn't really hired to do a report. I offered to do a summary that maybe you would accept my the report.
Oh, wait, you weren't hired. You offered. Are you an ambulance chaser?
Money so we could shorten the trial, but I made myself available to testify.
So you offered to write a report to shorten the trial?
Well, if you accepted my report, maybe you wouldn't need my testimony here today. That would shorten the trial.
Oh, he wants to get himself on TV.
So did you offer
Look at him
to do
like,
a report
oh, shit.
because you're personal friends with Mr. Levine?
No.
Are you personal friends with Mr. Levine?
I'm friends with him. We don't socialize and stuff. I've known him for 30 some years. I've never testified for him in any court of law.
Boo.
And in 47 years, I've only worked with him on 2 cases.
So did you run into him when you were out on the town or somewhere in your town? You ran into him and started talking about this case. Is that how you got retained by your friend of 30 years?
Is that relevant, Your Honor?
You're not in a
You
position
can't do
to
that.
object. Let's stop it. You're a witness. You're not an attorney here.
Okay.
You're speaking as a witness.
Okay.
So you're trying to object. It's overruled. Answer the question.
Mr. Levine called me.
Well, he's family. He's not criminal.
In February, in end of January, beginning of February, 25. While I assume your trial was going on, and asked me if I could do an analysis of what a spouse would receive in a divorce case in 2017, 2018.
So you didn't run into him and then strike up this conversation out of the blue?
No, of course not.
All right. So when he called you that, then did he offer to pay you for your services?
He did.
And at that point, is that when, before you wrote a report, that you gave him a $7,500 retainer?
No. He gave me a 7,500. I didn't give him
Oh,
a
well,
75.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah. So.
That's funny.
Yeah. Yes, he sent that to me within 48 hours of our having a conversation about what my responsibility or work product would be.
Okay, so are you currently practicing or are you retired?
No, I'm a member of the bar. I'm practicing. I was in trial last week in Ventura. I have.
That's fine.
Okay.
Now, when you talked about, I mean, the joke about an objection in court here, have you testified as a expert on divorce benefits in a criminal court?
Never in a criminal court. 10 times as a divorce expert in divorce cases.
So that's all civil.
It's all civil.
And it's all based on the side that you're representing, whether it be the male or the female, right?
And I've been appointed by the court on 2 or 3 occasions.
Is that a yes?
Can I answer the question, Your Honor?
You can answer the question of the propriety, sir.
So I'm going to object non-responsive.
Sustain.
I'm sorry, could you rephrase the question?
Have you practiced or testified as an attorney, as an expert in a case of divorce and how much money somebody may or may not receive in a criminal court case?
I already answered that. The answer was no. You then asked me.
Objection, non-responsive. Can I ask you again?
In a criminal case, I already answered.
Excuse me, Your Honor, he answered no.
No.
Excuse me, sir. It's overruled. It's overruled.
I've never testified on any divorce-related matters in a criminal case.
So this is the one case where you're doing a favor for your friend of 30 years. This is the first time in your entire career that you're going to come into court and testify for the defense in a criminal case. Is that accurate?
That is totally inaccurate. I'm not doing any favors for Mr. Levine, Ms. Sementilli, or anyone in this courtroom, and that's offensive. I'm testifying because I got $7,500 to give an expert opinion.
Move to strike.
Stricken.
You were paid $7,500 as a retainer before you provided the report or after you provided the report?
Before.
Okay, and that retainer involved what? What was your understanding that retainer would be for?
I would analyze what the parties' divorce would look like in 2017 and 18. That was one. Two, I would make myself available to come to court to listen to your expert, if you had an expert, and critique that expert's opinion. And three, I would make myself available to testify.
Okay, and then you testified that at the conclusion of those 3 points that you just made, you feel as though your $7,500 will, for lack of better words, be used up. You're going to have at least billed $7,500 for those services, right?
I estimate that will cover all of my time in this case.
Do you estimate it's going to go over that?
I really don't.
Okay. And that's for writing a report, coming to court and listening to testimony, and then coming again today to testify. Is that right?
That is correct.
All right. Now, you have not ever had a conversation with the defendant in this case. Is that correct?
Never.
And prior to this, you never knew the Sementillis or the state of their marriage?
Never.
So if there were to be a divorce, it's fair to say you have no idea what the terms would be if they even agreed on certain aspects of a divorce, right?
That is correct.
Because sometimes people get divorced and it's amicable and they work it all out and they never hire someone like you, an attorney, correct?
That is correct.
So you're just estimating that this would be a hostile divorce and the best benefit for the client, which would be in this case, the defendant.
Wrong. Not correct.
Okay, what's not correct about that?
Even if it was a mediation, which I'm doing now, which is not hostile, the parties negotiate terms. The terms they would negotiate would be division of assets, in this case, spousal support, child support, attorney's fees, which is a major issue, because if they had gotten divorced, in my opinion, There would have been major attorney's fees involved. So I'm doing mediation now, and I'm enjoying it, but I'm mediating major cases.
Objection, non-responsive to the last part, move to strike.
Sure.
So your conversations with Mr. Levine, you knew about the defendant in this case. How old was she when her husband died?
I believe I was told in her 40s.
Okay, 44, does that sound right?
That sounds right.
And then you weren't sure how old Fabio was, but if I told you 49, that sounds right?
That sounds right from what I heard today, correct.
And then you estimated that if there was a divorce, and this would be under the assumption that it's a contested divorce, correct?
No.
Well,
it could be mediated, which is not really contested. Contested, you mean like litigation in court? I'm in trial, or do you mean mediation? There's many different, avenues of divorce, but
exactly. There's a lot of different avenues of divorce, right?
right. And if I was a mediator,
So, objection, no question pending.
Very good.
Are you allowed to answer the question?
He's volunteering, counsel. That's not responsive.
So there's a lot of avenues for divorce. You can't say exactly what would have happened had the defendant divorced her husband, who you don't even know, right?
Yep.
and that's hard to answer. I can.
Is it?
No, in a 21-year marriage, you get so many years of support.
Is it?
Okay,
period.
sir,
Love it.
Who told you it was a 21-year marriage?
Miss Ebersbacher.
Okay, so what if I told you that that's incorrect? Did you speak directly to Miss Ebersbacher?
No, that's what she testified to.
Okay, so it's a 19-year marriage. Does that change anything?
No, nothing.
All right. Now, based on that, again, all these different avenues, not knowing Mr. Sementilli, not knowing the defendant, she could have gotten substantially more than what you've estimated, right? He could have given her a lot more.
That's correct.
Right.
A lot less, a lot more.
He could have also said, nope, you're having an affair with this guy. I found out about it. I'm not agreeing to anything. And that divorce could have drug on for 10 years, right?
Yep.
I see a lot of affairs, and I've never had a case drag on anywhere near 10 years.
You don't know what he would have done.
You used 10 years.
Okay, could have drug on for years, right?
5 years? Yes.
All right. So that doesn't mean it would have been resolved that day. Now, you also testified that, in your opinion,
Is that a question?
That sounds like testimony.
you also testified that she would receive, in your opinion, $90,000 a year, and that's if you're using a formula with the family code, I assume.
I used Miss Ebersbacher's numbers of $280,000 average annual income for Mr. Sementilli. I used
$280,000. That was not his average income. His average income was less than 200. There were bonuses, but you can't count on the bonuses.
And I used all of the factors under Family Code 4320.
Okay, what about the fact that the defendant is 44 years old? In your experience of all these years since 1985 practicing, do the courts say, you know what, you're 44, you were a prior teacher, a professor, or whatever version of teaching, and you know what, just kick back. You don't have to work. You don't have to get a job. You're going to get $90,000 a year. Is that how it really works?
She would get $90,000 a year, period. But what you're getting to, Miss Ebersbacher brought up, which is interesting. You want to talk about it? We should. Which is the Gavron warning. The Gavron warning in California states that if you're able to work, you should try to work. Doesn't mean you're going to be self-supporting. Just means if you're able to work, you should. Now, if she made 30 or 40 or 50, if she made $100,000, it would change the equation. She would get less support.
Right.
But maybe Mr. Sementilli, if the case dragged on for 5 years, is now making 400,000 or 500,000. It would not, he'd pay more. He wouldn't pay less, even if she was making $100,000. So,
Okay, again, let me ask you this. The Gavron warning, I understand what you're testifying to, but again, she's 44. You're not saying that a woman who's 44 who has a teaching background couldn't go out and get a job, are you?
I'm saying that the courts require that people look for jobs if they're able to work.
And a 44-year-old healthy woman who has a prior career, who gave up that career to move to another country with her teen daughters, that would be somebody that would be able to work again.
You'd have to analyze then, does she have a teaching credential in California?
Okay.
If she doesn't, then she has to go to school.
How do you know that?
You can't teach without a teaching credential.
How do you know she doesn't?
I don't.
Okay.
I want you to tell me.
I'm not telling you anything,
what-
so that's not how this works. I'm asking you questions and then I'm asking you to answer. So again, my question is, you're not saying that the courts would look at a 44-year-old woman who has a history of teaching in California, let me put that in there, and say, you know what? You can divorce this man who makes $280,000 a year, and we're going to give you $90,000 a year for the rest of your life, and you don't have to do anything. Does that sound reasonable?
I'm telling you that that's what would happen in the beginning of a divorce. And they would probably, which they do, bring her back in 2 or 3 years to see if she's made efforts to better herself, to get a job.
What?
et cetera.
Wait,
And
wait. Are you talking about somebody who is, no offense, coming out of prison, recovering addict or something to better themselves? Just because you were a wife and you supported a husband while he built a career, while you stayed home, cleaned, cooked, take care of the children, take care of the house, and you were what, less than? And you have to better yourself? Dude, I'd be bitch slapping you right about now.
support is always modifiable, which means you come back and you see maybe he's making more.
The way you say it is, if she would if she was able to get a job and improve her living conditions, whatever they may be, then we will revisit. But you don't say
But you
lesser
didn't say
than.
any of that on direct exam. You
Better
said
yourself?
She would.
Better
Did
you in a
say
minute.
any of that, what you just testified to
I think
on
my
direct
boyfriend
exam in
ain't
front of this
listening.
courtroom?
You won't
I
like
could
my
talk
temper
about
right
spousal
now.
support for
I'm
hours.
sure you
Although I
could.
haven't seen it.
I'm sure. I don't think anyone doubts that.
My expertise.
Gerald, are
But
you here?
If you ask me, I'll answer the question. I was not
I'm
asked.
really trying. So the question is, again, did you testify to any of that about the fact that the defendant would come back in 2 or 3 years to revisit to see any efforts that she's made to get a job, which is what the court is looking for?
I was not asked that. The court.
Objection non-responsive.
Well, I don't know. I'll take your objection under submission. Finish your answer, sir.
The courts don't necessarily, they bring you back to make sure, to in some cases, they have so many cases, but they'll
He's
bring
stuttering.
you back to see if you're with Gavron in a lengthy marriage, because he would be ordered to pay that
He's struggling.
$7,500 for a long time.
Same objection.
I'm
Hey,
getting
Jennifer.
to her answer, which is
Struggling.
they would want to make sure that she's making efforts to better herself with.
I did get spousal
I'm
support.
assuming she has a
I was on
teaching
disability.
credential. They would expect her to be looking for jobs, looking for work. Assuming
That's none
there's
of their
no other
business.
health-related factors or anything like that, they would want her to be bettering herself. That's what Gavron means.
And my question was, did you testify to that on direct exam? Yes or no?
I wasn't asked about that. I can't testify.
Objection non-responsive.
As she's sponsored, Your Honor.
I'll allow it for me.
Okay. You did not testify to that on direct exam. Is that correct?
I was not asked that question.
Okay, did you go over that with your defense team, Mr. Levine, your friend of 30 years?
Your Honor, argumentative.
Yeah, may I say something?
You may say nothing, sir.
Did you discuss that with Mr. Levine?
I'm loving it.
The fact that the courts would require her to try to get a job.
We discussed what Gavron means. Your statement that the courts would require her to.
He does not want to answer this the way he's stuttering. Look, he's back. His arms are crossed. He's on the defense, and he ain't liking
Get a job is false. The courts would not require her to get a job. The courts would require her to look for a job and to do as much as she could to try to better herself. If she's able, health-wise, education-wise. There's so many factors. Do the minor children, do the adult children, are there any disabilities in the family? Are there any other?
Did you discuss what you're testifying right now with Mr. Levine and his team?
No, I did not.
Wouldn't that be something that should be considered now that we're talking about it in court and you're here to testify the benefit of divorce, which is your expertise?
Nothing you've asked me would change my professional opinion of what she would get, which would be the $7,500 a month for a minimum of 10 years and maybe for life.
All right, we're going to move on. Now, none of this matters, though.
He's doing good.
None of this matters if she gets married, right?
Yeah, remarriage terminates spousal support.
Okay, did Mr. Levine talk to you that the defendant was having an affair and was already utilizing the last name of her boyfriend?
I've represented hundreds of people in affairs.
Objection non-responsive.
Sustained.
No kidding, Jennifer.
Affairs
I'd be
do not-
at $7,500 a month.
Sustained. Listen to the question, sir.
Okay. I'm sorry, could you repeat it?
Did Mr. Levine and you discuss that the defendant had a boyfriend and was already wanting to use his last name as her last name, indicating that she's going to get married to him? Is it yes or no? Did you discuss that?
No.
He proposed. He said yes.
All right. Now we go into life insurance. You said your practice is that with life insurance, you would write it into any divorce agreement. Is that right?
I write it in 99% of my divorce agreements to protect the recipient spouse, be it male or female, because death terminates spousal support. And in cases where there's big money, you want to make sure that somebody gets money upon the untimely death of the payor spouse.
Would big money be $720,000? Is that considered big money?
Yeah, to me it is.
Okay, so if the spouse dies and the defendant gets $720,000 without any clause in any contract or agreement, there's no dispute to that, right? You just get it.
I don't know from your chart where that money came from. It didn't state whether that was an employment benefit, a separate policy.
I didn't reference a chart. I asked you a question.
Well, that 720 came off the chart.
I don't know if you heard me getting pissed earlier. Thank God you didn't.
So somebody dies. There's a policy for 100. Let's do a hypothetical. Somebody dies. There's a policy for $720,000, their share. They die. The spouse dies. The other person just gets it, right?
Is that security for spousal support? Who's the beneficiary? What are you asking me? Are you asking me, does the beneficiary of the policy get the money upon death? The answer is yes.
Thank you.
George,
Okay.
Go look at the judge.
And
You're
then
witnessing,
stock options, the last
not
topic.
attorney.
You're not an expert in stock options, I take it, right?
No, but I've handled millions of dollars worth of stock options. One case was
Objection non-responsive.
Everything after millions of dollars of stock options is non-responsive.
Boy, she's
Stock
nailing
options,
his
and you're aware that there
cojones
was stock
to the
options
wall.
involved in
I
this,
like it.
And you put that into your testimony as an analysis of a why divorce would be better than death. is based on one of the factors was these stock options that you testified to, right?
I want him curious.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm
Did
sorry,
you
out
know
my
when
nose.
those stock options vested?
I did not.
Okay.
But I believe Ms. Ebersbacher in her chart says that she uses a 3-year period of vesting, which I have no clue how she got that.
All right. Do you know from Procter & Gamble, the company where the victim, Mr. Sementilli, worked, do you have intimate knowledge of when those stock options vested?
I do not.
Okay. So you do understand that they vest upon death, right?
No, I don't know that.
You don't know any of that.
No.
So
I'd have to review the options.
Then how are you testifying to her receiving stock option money as part of her divorce benefit?
I accepted Ms. Ebersbacher's number of $74,000 that they were valued in 2017.
Okay. And then based on that, so you didn't do anything further with the stock options?
I also assumed that they were community property.
That makes an ass of you and me.
So
Maybe they were, maybe they weren't, but I assumed they were.
if your
Don't
assumption's right, she would get half of that.
That's correct.
All right. Do you know the expiration date on
do.
those? Can I finish my
I'm
sentence?
sorry, I apologize.
Do you know the expiration date on those stock options?
I do not.
Okay. So you're not an expert in stock options.
I consider myself almost an expert. Yes, in divorce cases, yes.
So that's, you consider yourself almost an expert in stock options.
I would delete the word almost and say an expert in stock options in divorce cases.
All right. But in this case, you didn't look at the stock options to know any of the
But not
details
death.
of them. You just looked at a chart by another witness.
You are not a pro
Totally
boat
correct.
lawyer.
All right. But as an expert, wouldn't you want to look at those stock options when they vest, when they expire, to intelligently testify as to the benefit to the surviving spouse?
In my report, I stated on page 2 of my report, my stock option analysis would have included, in addition to figuring out the 74,000 number, but I specifically wrote answers to the following questions, which were not discussed by Ms. Ebersbacher, such as when were the options granted? When do they vest? When may they be exercised? How was the community-separate characterization amounts arrived at? And finally, what happens if Mr. Sementilli left his employment at Procter & Gamble before options vested? These were a myriad of questions that I would have considered in a divorce case. Not really my job in this case, but
Okay.
I wanted you, if Mr. Levine shares this report with you, I wanted you to know that these are questions that I would have considered in a divorce.
So those are very valid questions. And you wrote them out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Did you go to the defense team who hired you to testify about this topic and ask those questions?
I gave the report to Mr. Levine, and I didn't feel like there was anything more to do other than to say these were issues that needed to be raised if you wanted it to go further.
So is the answer no, you did not ask to discuss those questions with Mr. Levine?
No, I gave him the questions. We didn't discuss them any further than this. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Wouldn't you want to know the answers and ask him for discovery on those questions that you wrote out? Wouldn't that be important to your discovery to discuss that with the defense attorney so you don't come in here and say, well, I wanted to know this. I wrote out that I wanted to know it, but I didn't ask him and we didn't talk about it.
Your Honor, that was not his assignment.
I'm sorry, sir. That's not a valid objection either.
Well, since facts not an error.
It's overruled.
Oh, snap.
That would have entailed spending another $25,000 to $50,000 in legal fees
For you.
for me to get the information, to analyze all the information. I didn't feel I felt like I could answer all the questions in a divorce case in 17, 18, or 19 without going further, because we knew that you had given us a number of what they were worth in 17. $74,000. That's what Miss Ebersbacher gave us. So we can use that number. Now, and we know what they're worth in 2024, because that's what they received, the 900,000. Anything in between, I mean, I didn't really feel it was my job to keep going further.
Okay. So it was
I wasn't told not to go further. It was.
All right. So you're just asked to look at a report written by somebody else and talk about stock options, but you don't know when they vest and when they expire, because that would be important to know.
That's correct.
All right. So you don't know with stock options. Again, you can't say what the defendant would have gotten with stock options. You don't know. You can't say when they vested. You can't say when she would exercise them. And certainly, you can't say that she would exercise them all at the same time at different times. You don't even know when they expire. So you can't factor a number in and say it would be much cheaper, because remember, she'd get half of them, right?
She'd only get half up to the date of separation.
Okay. And if her husband dies, she gets them all.
I don't know that.
Well, where do you think the stock options go?
Objection, that's not a question.
Well, it is a question. It's speculation.
You may not like it. Oh, sorry. You may not like it.
And in fact, they were exercised. You know that, right? In 2024.
Gerald, she wanted her cake and eat it too. If you can't figure it out, honey boo, we got a problem.
I know from Miss Ebersbacher's report that apparently the parties received $900,000 from exercising.
Did you get it, y'all?
Stock options, but I don't know, as I testified on direct, I don't know the breakdown of the community separate. I don't know where that came from.
Okay.
That would.
So, but you do know that they were exercised in 2024, and it's $935,000.
Well, Procter & Gamble stock, I assume, went up from 2017 to 2024, like the rest of the market, like Apple and Amazon and Microsoft.
And that value, because they were exercised, Fabio's dead. So there's now her husband, if you don't know the name, there's $935,000 then that has to go to someone, right?
It goes, it has to go to the state. I assume it has to, it's gone somewhere, right?
All right.
Children.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Children, I don't know. They have he had 3 children. That's my understanding.
You don't know any of that. You don't know any of the details of
Well,
any
that's
of
something
the percentages of any of this case.
As a divorce lawyer, you should know that if you're going to come and testify in a criminal case. That's a murder trial. You should know all the angles.
Right?
Did y'all not get my joke? His name is Baker. She wanted Baker the cake and eat it too. Y'all, I'm disappointed.
I know the percentages on, I
thought
believe,
it
the
was
life
good.
insurance. I have a document that Miss Ebersbacher gave us with
Document again, yes.
the
Thought it was
40,
good.
30, 20.
Yes.
I'm heartbroken.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, there's a page with, I believe it's life insurance. It shows 40% to her and 20.
No, June. The guy that she was having an affair with, swinging with, make porn videos and pictures with, last name is Baker. Who bakes cakes? A baker. She wanted Baker, so she wanted cake. Baker is the cake. And she ate him too. Okay, I got to get off of it.
Children, something. I have that page.
I'm going to get real raunchy in a minute.
So just to be clear then, if her husband dies, she gets 100% of everything, right?
Again,
I'm sorry.
I'm not an estate
It's
lawyer.
unclear. 100% of what?
Yeah, 100% of what? I'm sorry, Your Honor. I don't testify.
No, Yana.
Right.
I never do that good. That was
Yes,
good.
sir. Yes, sir.
Come on, I gotta do something. This has been a
And,
long day.
If she divorces him, then 50% is the most that she'll get typically in a divorce of all these different things you've talked about, right?
Pretty much.
Yes, unless they did a trade, like I told you before. They could
Okay.
trade the house for
Mhm.
options. Maybe they could trade pensions
Still,
for options.
50-50.
They could trade his car. He had a Porsche or something like that. They could trade a Porsche.
All right.
For-
There's a lot of
Oh,
maybes.
they ain't gonna trade that Porsche. That Porsche was going nowhere.
A lot of maybes,
Um,
but not a maybe on spousal support.
50%. Well, spousal support's less, but 50% for the most part, right? And versus 100%. It's 50% less than 100?
Sorry, 50% and 100% of what, Your Honor?
I don't know, vague. And that's the objection. That's all.
In general, you're a numbers guy, you're an attorney. Is 50% less than 100%?
You talking about mathematics?
Yeah.
I'll stipulate.
You accept that stipulation?
No.
All right.
You can answer, you can look, I know you're looking at the judge, but he's,
You want me to answer that? Yes.
okay, great.
In
thank
this
you.
century, 50% is less than 100%.
No, yes. That's it.
Stricken. Any redirect?
Oh, yes, Your Honor. Let me put this chart up here. Do you know how this chart came into this trial?
It was my understanding, hearing the testimony of Miss Ebersbacher, that she prepared this.
Yes, yes.
She spent approximately $20,000.
You understand that the prosecution put on a witness to prepare this chart, which came to conclusions that you have said did not include alimony and other factors, correct?
Correct.
And is it fair to say that I asked you to look at the chart and to analyze it if it was accurate or not?
Correct.
I did not hire you to do a complete financial analysis of their marriage, correct?
Correct.
And by the way, whether he had an affair or not, or she had an affair or not, this is a no-fault state. Is that correct?
Totally irrelevant in
Whether-
a divorce case.
Right. So in other words, whether she was having an affair or not, the amount of alimony would remain the same as it would whether they were not having an affair. She was not having an affair.
Totally
correct?
correct.
All right.
Which is
So,
wrong.
The analysis that you had
Hey,
was
sweet
based on
Magnolia.
the chart that was presented to you during the testimony of Ms. Ebersbacher, correct?
Totally correct.
Now-
Which I heard in person.
Right. Now, I retained you
Good
to
one,
analyze that
beloved.
chart,
I like
and a
that.
retainer was $7,500, correct?
That's correct.
If I had hired you to do a complete financial analysis of the finances of the Sementilli family, it would have been a lot more money, correct?
Minimum would have been $35,000 to $50,000 retainer.
But-
But because of mostly the stock option issue.
Okay.
Probably.
And the reason the stock options are so high is because they were not exercised for 7-8 years, correct?
Correct.
Do you know why they were not exercised for 7 or 8 years?
I do not know.
Do you know whether or not the estate actually got a letter from Procter and
It could have been even higher 7-8 years ago, depending on the stock market.
Gamble telling them if they didn't exercise them, they were going to lose them all?
I only knew that from you telling me that recently.
All right. And do you know if Ms.
You tell me,
Sementilli
boo.
even knew about the stock options that ended up being exercised in 2024?
I have no knowledge of what she knew, period.
Now, do you know?
I've never spoken with her.
Do you know that the death of Fabio Sementilli was in January of 2017? Do you know that?
I knew it was in 2017. That's all I knew.
Do you know whether or not she was not in custody for 4 months after his death? Do you know that?
I did not know that.
Okay. So during those 4 months, she could have exercised any or all of the options, correct?
I don't know that. I don't know if she was allowed to exercise.
Do you know if she exercised
She wasn't allowed to do anything until the police cleared her name.
all of the options?
I do not know that.
And do you understand that the reason they're worth $900,000 is because the passage of 7 years, correct?
That's correct. I assume.
Do you think it was worth it for her to
You
be?
can't say correct and assume in the same sentence. And if you're smart, attorney, boo, you would have gone back to the year this happened and found out what that market was doing at that time and figured it out to combat what you're talking about. So if it was going to be less than what it was figured at, I would have said, legal assistant, go find out what the stock market was on this particular item at that time, and let's figure out what it would have been at that time. And then I would have been prepared. If it was less than what it is at the time it was configured, I wouldn't use it. And define normal.
Prison for 7 years in order for the options to go up?
Of course.
That's an improper question.
Do you know whether or not during those 7 years she made any attempt to exercise those options?
I do not.
She couldn't. She was
Do you
in
know if
jail.
she even knew about those options?
I do not.
So do you know whether the prosecution hired an expert to analyze the entire financial analysis of the Sementilli?
I'm talking about the criminal attorney who's asking him the questions. He should have thought about that. If you're going to sit here and say that those stock options are grossly inflated because it's been 9 years, well, what were they back then? Because do you know what? Sometimes it was higher then than it is now. It's not always that way.
The only thing I know is that Miss Evers, my knowledge is limited to Miss Ebersbacher's testimony and report.
So this report was prepared by Ms. Ebersbacher for the prosecution at no cost, right?
No, Miss Ebersbacher was testified she was paid approximately $18,000 to $20,000.
Yes, by the taxpayers like you and I, right?
Correct. Correct.
Objection, Your Honor.
So take a deep breath. You're getting argumentative, and I'm going to have to break right now.
I'm done. I'm done. If the court.
Go ahead.
All right.
Objection.
Is your testimony based then on the chart prepared by the prosecution and the testimony that you sat here and heard from Ms. Ebersbacher? Is that correct?
And my 47 years of experience as a divorce attorney.
And have you done your best to analyze that chart and then conclude whether or not it was accurate or not accurate?
I have.
And finally, the best option would have been for them to stay married, and then none of this would come into play, right? If he didn't.
So you don't want him to get a divorce when his wife is becoming the newest granny porn star? She's becoming a granny porn star. And you want him to sit there and tolerate that and not get divorced? That's the best option? Dude, let me add him. Let me add him.
The best option would have been to stay married and not get divorced, right?
That would have been a
No.
good option.
Okay.
I don't even want anybody. You know.
But he was murdered, obviously, and that's what we're here to decide.
Right.
But the best option would have been to stay married financially, because then you could get divorced later on, right?
Oh my
without
God,
a doubt,
you are
that was the
And
best
an
finally,
idiot for a lawyer.
On Gavron, you said it would be adjusted every 3 years based on the money that Ms. Sementilli might be earning, correct?
No, I did not say that. I said that it's common in LA County that a judge will bring a case back in 3 years to review efforts made by a spouse.
Okay. Let me just, because we're running out of time.
I'm sorry.
Would it also consider how much increase in salary Mr. Sementilli had in those 3 years?
Absolutely, yes.
So if he was making $300,000, $400,000, or $500,000 over the 20 years you're talking about, then alimony would go up. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I have none.
Will there be any more? No. Thank you, sir. You're excused. We're going to take our adjournment at the time of tomorrow at 9 o'clock. The evidence applies. You don't have to discuss this case among yourselves with anyone else or before express any opinion until the cause is finally submitted to you. Have a good evening. See you tomorrow at 9.
OMG, he pissed me off. So pissed me off. Okay, guys. I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for joining me today. Tomorrow we will be here with Karen Reed. Oh, we got to do this, y'all. We got to do this. Miss Karen Reed will be here tomorrow. And then we'll go into the Monica Sementilli. It's going to win. Sweet Magnolia, you have an entry into the end of the month giveaway. Congratulations. Thank you so much for joining. We appreciate you so very much. I will be here tomorrow. Mornings are still brutal for me with what's going on, but I will be here for the Karen Reed motion hearing tomorrow. I'm so happy that Proctor got terminated with dishonorable discharge. Best thing of the day. He deserved it. He deserved it. So with that, I want to bid everywhere a farewell. Have a fabulous evening. And I hope y'all get a good night's sleep and get ready for Karen Reed. Bye. Thanks for watching. Please comment, like, share, and most importantly, subscribe. I hope you have an awesome day. Till next time, take care.